What is up, Wizards? It is time for the speed run, ladies and gentlemen. There are 376 cards on this one Scryfall page right here. If that is not every card in Avatar, it is really, really close. So I think we're ready to speed run this joint, and let's go ahead and get down to it after a quick discussion again of the scoring system. This is 1 through 10. 5 is a card I would play in my deck. We're going to try to weight this towards standard and other competitive environments. I will talk about some times when a card is good in limited or commander and whatnot, but we are mostly looking at the competitive viability of any of these cards right here. So expect it to be a little bit tough because usually cards aren't necessarily standard playable, but I think that this set may be a little stratified. I think there might be some really powerful standard and other competitive environments like playable stuff in this thing, whereas there's also a lot of drafty, 2.5s basically. So let's buckle up because I think there's a lot of variation in this set, and let's go ahead and start the timer. We speed run, and Aang's Journey is our first card. 2 mana for a sorcery speed lesson with kicker 2. If you search your library here for a basic land card, but if you kicked it, instead search your library for a basic land and a shrine card. Reveal them, put them in your hand, shuffle up, you gain 2 life. So good for the shrine decks, but just a decent card in general. 2 mana to go get a basic and gain 2 is all right, especially considering any deck can play it. But again, I'm not like too excited about this in standard to begin with. I'm going to give this a solid, though, 4.4. I think it's okay. Energy Bending, second card. This is 2 mana for an instant speed lesson this time. Land you control, gain all basic land types till end of turn, draw a card. So this kind of just has cycling. You really get down to it, just 2 mana at instant speed to draw a card is cycling, but this puts a lesson into your graveyard much easier than a lot of the other lessons, and it does matter if there's lessons in your graveyard on a couple of pretty powerful looking cards, so keep that in mind. But also it fixes your mana for a turn, works with domain and effects like it, so art is amazing, so I guess I gotta point that out as well. Altogether, pretty strong card. While not being actually strong. Stronger than Aang's Journey, but I don't know, both of these are on kind of a similar tip to me, but I think Energy Bending is slightly better. I'm going to give this a 4.8. Zuko's Exile is 5 mana for an instant speed lesson. Exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment. Its controller creates a clue token. That is a pretty good spread of options, but even an instant speed 5 mana is a little bit too much for this. I'm going to give this a 3.7. Next is Aang the Last Airbender, 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/2 legendary human avatar ally with flying. When it enters, airbend up to 1 other target non-land permanent. Whenever you cast a lesson spell, Aang gains lifelink till end of turn. Not the best of lesson payoffs, right? But I think that the, enter the battlefield trigger is pretty good. Not as good as like another uncommon creature that we'll get to a little bit later. As far as like Fiend Hunter or Brutal Cathar effects go, I don't know that this is the best one, but you don't see a 3-power flying one every day. That said, you also don't see a Brutal Cathar effect where they can so easily get their creature back either. You can target your own stuff with this and repeat ETB triggers, so there's some spread on playability here, but altogether I think 4 mana is too much for a creature with such low stats. They can blow this away with a Burst Lightning and gain 3 mana value on you. That is not a thing you want in Standard. So, I'm going to give this a 4.2, somewhere in there. Aang's Iceberg is 3 mana, 2 and a white for an enchantment with flash. When it enters, exile up to 1 other target non-land permanent until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. If you waterbend 3, sacrifice this enchantment. If you do, scry 2. So kind of neat in that it has flash. It's literally Oblivion Ring or Banishing Light, but it has flash. So what do you give that? Well, honestly, Oblivion Ring and Banishing Light are serviceable removal spells in general, so I kind of think that's fine, but I still can't give it the best score in the world, but I do think this is the highest scoring card so far. So I'm going to give this a 5. Right at. There are decks that I could probably stomach playing this card in, especially if I get some sort of benefit for playing an enchantment or if I'm playing it mostly instant speed. I could see this being a thing. But next is Airbender Ascension. This is the best card so far. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters, airbend up to 1 target creature. Whenever a creature you control enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if this enchantment has 4 or more quest counters on it, exile up to 1 target creature you control. Then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. I believe I made a mistake when first reviewing this card. I was under the impression it sacrificed itself when you did that, but you don't. If you have 4 quest counters on this, it just blinks a thing every single turn. So you get like a teleportation circle effect for very low mana, but you have to invest creatures into it. But I think you'll be playing creatures. Problem with this is that it kind of forces you to play it on your turn 2 and waste your turn 2. At that point, you have to blink a 1-drop, and there aren't a ton of really blinkable 1-drops. I guess Lightstall Inquisitor comes to mind, but if that's I believe is the name of that card. But there's a couple of blinkable 1-drops. There's not a ton of them, though. Novice Inspector, I guess. That's a thing. But you're not necessarily blinking your guy. You don't have to do that. I think that the actual playability on this comes when, say, you are on the draw. Your opponent plays their 2-drop creature. And then for your turn 2, you Airbender Ascension, airbend their 2-drop. And then on the next turn, you can start playing creatures. So it might be like turn 4 before you get this online, but that's a fine turn to get it online. You know, you can start blinking your Charming Prince, which blinks something else or gains you life or whatever it is. So, you know, I definitely think there are good things to blink with this, and it doesn't take so much effort to get it to start just being Teleportation Circle. That's pretty powerful. So I'm not sure if it's playable in Standard, but once it's enabled, it's a strong effect. So I'm going to give this a 5.9. I think we're verging pretty decent territory with it. But next is Airbender's Reversal. This is a solid uncommon. 2 mana, 1 and a white for an instant speed lesson. Choose 1, destroy target attacking creature, or airbend a creature you control, which means that you can use this as kind of a protection spell. I think it's kind of nice. Either protection or removal, both really, really good modes. I think the real key to this is like when to use which mode, right? Do I burn this on an early attacking creature and not get much mana value? Or do I save it to protect the guy that I'm playing next turn, or whatever it is, right? So you have to use the card wisely, but that means it's a good card when both spreads are decent. You know, it reminds me of like a Valorous Stance, kind of. And Valorous Stance is a solid Magic card too. So I will give this a 5.2. I will. I think this is decent. Airbending Lesson is 3 mana, 2 and a white for an instant speed lesson. That makes sense. Airbend a non-land permanent and draw a card. So another airbending card. This one's fine. You know, I don't think you really want to use this as removal, but at least it cantrips. Draws a card. Shorthand for draw a card. Like an instant or sorcery or anything really. But I like most things that draw cards, but I do think this is slightly steep, especially if you want to use it on your own stuff. And if you want to use it on their stuff, they can get it back pretty easily. So, I don't know. Maybe limited playable common, and might actually be decent if you're like airbending one of their dudes in combat so it doesn't get damage in and you draw a card. I can see ways to use it, but altogether I'm not too impressed. I'm going to give this a 3.5. Appa Loyal Sky Bison is 6 mana, 4 double white for a 4/4 legendary Bison ally with flying. Whenever it enters or attacks, choose 1. Target creature you control gains flying until end of turn. Or airbend another target non-land permanent that you control. So not a standard playable card. Limited killer, by the way. I think this is very good and limited, but not a standard playable card. We'll give old Appa a 3. Next is another Appa, Steadfast Guardian. This one's mythic. This is 4 mana, 2 and double white for a 3/4 legendary Bison ally with flash and flying. When Appa enters, airbend any number of other target non-land permanents you control, and whenever you cast a spell from exile, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this can save you from sweeps, but you have to like hold all of your mana up in order to do that, you know. So there's that. It's only a 3/4 for 4 mana, but the flash is very nice, you know. Like you can block with your guys and then airbend them, and I guess that's fine. Even if you just want blinks, effectively, the blinks are going to kind of cost you mana, but you know, if you do this on your opponent's turn, you have 4 mana, so you can get 2 of your creatures back, I guess, at least 2 of your guys back. Altogether, I want to be more impressed by this. I think the best line of text, though, is obviously the last one, because it doesn't necessarily rely on Appa's own ability. Now, it works with Appa's own ability, but if you just look at this in a vacuum, cast a spell from exile, get a 1/1 white ally, well, that works with Warp. That works with Impulse Drawing in red, which is there's an awful lot of good Impulse Drawing. That works with Adventures. That works with, you know, Foretell effects, you know, like Plot and whatnot. So there's a lot of ways to cast spells from exile, and getting a 1/1 every time looks pretty good. So maybe in like the 5 mana Quintorius Khan deck, you know what I mean? this could be halfway decent just because that line of text is strong. I'm going to give this I will give this a 5.7 because I do think this ability is a little bit more annoying than it reads. You know, Pinch It, thank you for these 7 months. I appreciate that, man. Avatar Enthusiast, all of y'all in chat right now. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 2/2 human peasant ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, this guy gets a +1/+1 counter. You know, like there's very much a limited common here, but I do like that it's common. It might get huge and limited. But I'm just going to give this a 2.8. I don't think you'll even play it in your competitive allies deck. Avatar's Wrath is 4 mana, 2 and double white for a sorcery. Choose up to 1 target creature, then airbend all other creatures. Until your next turn, your opponents cannot cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. Exile Avatar's Wrath. So that's cute. Again, if they have cards in exile, like warped cards, adventure cards, and stuff, I guess this works against those. But it airbends all their creatures and makes sure that they cannot recover from that sweeper for a full turn. It might even make it to where you get 2 full turns to attack with your one guy that you saved, you know? And that's kind of cool. So I like this. It's not a straight up Wrath effect, but so often, Wrath effects buy you the turn or two that you need to win the game anyway. And that's kind of all this is really doing. So I kind of like this a lot. I don't know that it's better than a Day of Judgment, but as I've gone on record before, Day of Judgment, Wrath of God, these cards are like a 7.5. So I won't give this card that, but I do think that it's got some wrinkles that those cards don't have that look really powerful. You know, like blow up everything except for my huge dude, get in for sure this turn for guaranteed damage. And then if you can't cast a creature spell from your hand at that point, I get another big attack step with this guy. So I think that could be really good. I'm going to give this a 6.3. I think it's pretty good. I do. Next is Compassionate Healer. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric ally. When it becomes tapped, gain a life and scry 1. You know, it's kind of a 23rd card for limited and not much else. So I'll give Healer a 2.4. I think it's fine. Curious Farm Animals is kind of dope. A single white mana for a 1/1 boar, elk, bird, ox. When it dies, you gain 3 life. You can pay 2 and sack it to destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. Somebody in the comments section of today's preview video pointed out that this costs 2 to sacrifice and gains 3 life because it's food. That's so mean. That's kind of a mean-spirited design there, but I think it's also kind of a fun wink, wink, nudge, nudge on another level. Either way, the best creature type this has out of all 4 is probably bird. I think it's the only one that really matters, but it is cool. It's another 1-drop bird if you want to build a bird deck. Altogether, it's a pretty strong common. You know, 1-drop. I think it's okay. I don't think it's better than some of the other 1-drops we have access to in standard, but I still think it's okay, dude. I'm going to give this like a 5.3. I think it's okay. I really do. And we will build that Stardew Valley deck. Destined Confrontation somehow found its way into the uncommon slot. This is 4 mana, 2 and double white for a sorcery. Each player chooses any number of creatures they control, total power 4 or less, then sacks all other creatures they control. So this could whiff. They might not even have enough creatures to sacrifice anything. So maybe that's why it's an uncommon. I do think this will work less often than you think, and it's more of a commander card where there's a lot of creatures on the table at any given time than it is a standard card. So I'm going to kind of shockingly give this a 3.8. I really don't think this is going to hit the way you want it to some of the time. Next is Earth Kingdom Jailer. This is the better Brutal Cathar effect I was referring to earlier. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 3/3 human soldier ally. When it enters, exile up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater until this creature leaves the battlefield. So the big problem with this guy is that if you are on the play and you drop this guy on turn 3, well, your opponent hasn't taken their turn 3 yet. So it probably won't have any targets. You know what I mean? And if they do play a target for it on turn 3, now you got to play off curve. You know, you can't play the Biza, you can't play the Overlord of the Mistmoors, whatever you got in the chamber, you know. So it is a little bit more awkward than it looks, but especially if you are on the draw, the card becomes a little bit better, I think. And there's a pretty good spread of permanents this can pick up, man. You know, you get 3 different things, all of which are really relevant in standard right now, to nab with this. And some pretty impactful things. You know, Synthesizer and Vivi come to mind. Kaito comes to mind. So there's some decent stuff that you can pick up with this. I like it a good bit, and it might actually sneak into a standard deck from time to time. So I'm going to give this a 5.6, somewhere in there. Earth Kingdom Protectors is one of my favorite allies in the set. A single white mana for a 1/1 human soldier ally with vigilance. Sack this creature. Another ally you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So I like Selfless Savior even when it's, you know, specific to one creature type. You know, I think that in your allies deck, which is usually how I rate these, you know, creature type matters cards, is not in a vacuum, but like in context of their, you know, tribe. I have to give this like a 6, you know. Like, I think it's literally one of the best allies in the allied deck, like for sure. This will protect the allies that actually matter to you, and that's a big deal. But Next, we'll look at a card I like even more. This is Enter the Avatar State. I love this card, man. A single white mana for an instant speed lesson. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes an avatar in addition to its other types and gains flying, first strike, lifelink, and hexproof. Flying, first strike, lifelink, and hexproof. Brothers and sisters. You want a protection spell with some extra juice? Yeah, this one. Several oranges worth of extra juice, dude. Like, flying and lifelink are good enough to put on a card. That's for 1 mana, and it's a lesson too. It's instant speed. Like, let's go. Let's go all the way with this one, baby. I'm going to actually give this like a 6.2. I think this is around the same power level as like a Snakeskin Veil. And that's, what do you score a Snakeskin Veil? That ain't no 5, you know what I mean? That's a pretty good card. Is that the cheapest lesson CMC? It's, I mean, I guess it has to be, right? I don't know if there's any other 1-drops. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there may be another one. Altogether, that is a solid Magic card, dude. Seriously. I probably shouldn't have given Protectors a 6. Honestly, no one said anything to me yet, but I feel bad for the 6 here. I will stick to my 6.2 on Enter the Avatar State, though. That is a very solid uncommon. Next is Fancy Footwork. 3 mana, 2 and a white for an instant speed lesson. Untap up to, 1 or 2 target creatures. They each get +2/+2 till end of turn. Limited combat trick that's kind of a little expensive even in that environment. So I'm just going to give this a 2.2. Gather the White Lotus is 5 mana, 4 and a white for a sorcery. Create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each planes you control. Scry 2. So I actually have a tiny amount of hope this is standard playable. I really do. Like in the mono white deck with Caretaker's Talent or whatever. I like it, especially if you go like Elspeth Stormslayer into this and you get like 12 tokens or whatever it is. It could be pretty good, I think, but altogether, I don't have as much faith in it as I'd like to. So I'm just going to slap a 5.2 on this and keep pushing, but I really like this card. Like an awful lot, dude. War Leader's Call out with this. Let's go. Glider Kids is up next. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 2.3. The 2.3? Maybe it is. A 2/3 human pilot ally with flying when it enters, scry 1. Yeah, I was close, honestly. It's a better Windrake, though. But that doesn't really matter for standard at all. So I'll give this a 2.6. You know, it's a flyer with an ETB trigger for a not outrageous mana cost. Like, sure. Glider Staff is 3 mana, 2 and a white for an equipment that equips for 2. When it enters, airbend up to 1 target creature. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. So a 3 mana removal spell, right? It's a removal spell. It's at the very least tempo that also equips eventually. Flying's not the worst ability in the world, right? This is sneaky. This is actually kind of sneaky. I'm going to give this a 3.8. Maybe even higher. I'm going to give this a 4. I'm going to solid 4, you know? Not anywhere near a 5, but I honestly think this is like halfway decent in some applications. Next is Invasion Reinforcements. This is just Resolute Reinforcements. 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 1/1 human warrior ally with flash. When it enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So instead of being like a soldier, you get the warrior and the ally creature type. So you could say this might even be better than Resolute Reinforcements in kind of edge cases. And it's already a good card. So I'm going to give this like a 5.4. We already know that it's a decent role player. And I think a 5.4 is probably right for a decent role player, you know? Not so bad. Yeah, Boros Mice would love it. You talking about that +2/+2, or excuse me, not +2/+2, but like lifelink, hexproof, flying thing? Yeah, that would go very well in Boros Mice. Zhang's Deserters is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 1/2. Why do I keep wanting to make the white mana symbol red? I've already made that mistake once and I almost did it just there. 2 mana for a 1/2 human rebel ally. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Meh. You know, just big meh on that one. We'll give this a 2 right out. Kyoshi Warriors is 4 mana. This is cool art, by the way. 3 and a white for a 3/3 human warrior ally. When it enters, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token. Maybe playable and limited to a degree, but not playable pretty much anywhere else. 1.9 actually on this. I don't like it. The Legend of Yang Chen is 4 mana, 3 and 2 white for a Saga. Just an enchantment saga. I was thinking it might be legendary, but it's not. On chapter 1, starting with you, each player chooses up to 1 permanent with mana value 3 or greater from among permanents your opponents control. Exile those permanents. You may have target opponent draw 3 cards on chapter 2. If you do, you draw 3 cards as well. On chapter 3, exile it, transform it into Avatar Yang Chen. This is a 4/5 legendary avatar with flying. When you cast your second spell each turn, Airbend up to one other target non-land permanent. That's pretty good. Pretty good. And you can do it, multiple times per turn cycle, which might be kind of important in standard even. I think that 5 mana is okay because, in 1v1s, you just blow something up with a high mana value when this comes into play. You might not get mana value on your opponent for doing so. You'll probably get parity or maybe even lose a mana value, but I think it's going to be worth it most of the time. And then on chapter 2, you don't have to do anything. But it's worth noting that when you draw your 3 cards that turn, you'll have all your mana untapped. That's better than a lot of white effects that force you to tap down mana and then get a symmetrical draw. But for 5 mana, I think blowing something up and getting this effect is really, really good. It's not like Hullbreaker Horror or anything, but it is probably the next best thing to Hullbreaker Horror, you know what I mean? So I don't know if this goes into mono white or not, but it is traditionally a pretty strong mid-range kind of card. So I'm going to give this a 6 and keep pushing, but I'm not sure it finds a home. I do think it's a decent card, though. But Master Piandao is 4 mana, or excuse me, it's 5 mana, 4 and a white for a 4/4 legendary human warrior ally with first strike. He's very handsome, by the way. Whenever Master Piandao attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an ally, equipment, or lesson from among them. Put that thing into your hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So you get an impulse for very, very specific, card types, and it costs 5 mana to begin with. But a 4/4 legendary or 4/4 first strike is formidable. It's better than it looks. That said, you'll never put this in a standard deck in your life. It will never happen. So, Pauper Commander, I guess. Let's give this a 3.4. I want to be impressed by it, but I'm not. Momo Friendly Flyer is among the strongest cards in the entire set, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle in for a high score. A single white mana for a 1/1 legendary lemur bat ally with flying. The first non-lemur creature spell with flying you cast during each of your turns costs 1 less to cast. So, cost reduction for flyers, once a turn. Whenever another creature you control with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So, what this actually is a 1 mana 2/2 flyer that lets you play like a 3 mana flyer on turn 2. So good. 4 mana flyer on turn 3 if you want to. And obviously, on turn 3, you could also go 3 mana flyer into 1 mana flyer? You could do that pretty easily. So I think this is going to lead to some insane lines in standard. I think this is signaling, along with a couple of other cards in the set, by the way. I think this might signal that Blue-White Skies is on. Obviously, a decent card in Bats, where all of your creatures fly anyway there. It's a great 1-drop for that. So I don't know if it makes Bats relevant day 1 or anything, but I do think that there's going to be lines that, whether it's Blue-White Skies or just White X, whatever, Mono-White Skies, this is going to be a wild Magic card, man. It's very, very efficient. Not only is it efficient, but it causes greater efficiency throughout the game if your opponents don't do anything about it. Not only is it efficient for turn 1, but it will cause efficiency on turn 2, 3, 4. So just so insane. So insane, man. I think this is really, really good. And I'm going to give Momo... Is it outrageous? Is this outrageous? I'm going to give Momo a 7.9. And I really want to give it higher than that. I want to give this higher than that so badly, dude. So bad. So really, really like this. I do think it's among, in some ways, the strongest pieces. I think this is modern playable. I really do. But Momo Playful Pet is another take on the 1-drop Momo. This one at uncommon. This is a single white mana for a 1/1 legendary lemur bat ally, with this time flying and vigilance. So you get more abilities on the uncommon one. When it leaves the battlefield, choose one. You get a food token, or put a +1/+1 counter on a thing you control, or scry 2. So playable in Pixie, maybe. For what it's worth, I think Momo the first, Momo the rare, might be playable in Pixie too. Because you'd be casting flying creatures. They all have flying. And yeah, Pixie you won't get any cost reduction on, but fear of missing out you will. You know what I mean? So that's kind of nice. Or not fear of missing out, fear of isolation. So that's kind of neat. But Momo Playful Pet, I think, is the much more playable card in Pixie. That said, if it is played in Pixie, it's like a 1-of. I don't think this is a 2, 3, 4. I think this is 1-of written all over it, if it's even playable there. I think it's possible to see this in the sideboard because it makes the food token against aggro. And it also increases your clock. A +1/+1 counter on your Pixie, or a +1/+1 counter on your fear of isolation. These are actually, that's not weak. It's not strong. So I like this. I'm just going to give it a 5.4 for now, though. I think as far as 1-drops go, especially at lower rarities, it's pretty good. But Path to Redemption is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature can't attack or block, so pacifism. You can pay 5 and sack the aura to exile the enchanted creature, and you get a 1/1 white ally creature token, but you only can activate this during your turn. So I feel okay about a strictly better pacifism. It's not like it's the first one we've seen. It's like the 8th one we've seen. But again, you probably won't play this card in your standard deck, but maybe it sneaks its way into your Ariette of the Charmed Apple Commander deck or something like that. But you probably won't see this card too often, which is a shame. So I used to love pacifism effects, and we've gone way beyond them. But, old man yells at cloud aside. I'm just going to give this a 3.1. 3.1, sure. Next is Rabaru Troop. This is 5 mana, 3 and double white for a 3/5 rabbit kangaroo with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this guy gains flying till EOT, and you gain 1 life. It also plane cycles for 2. So, interestingly, usually these land cycling creatures for limited, they cost a buttload of mana, and they don't really do anything desirable. Whereas with this, it costs a little less than a buttload of mana and does something potentially desirable. So I like that there's kind of a more of a tension than usual. It's like usually if you need your 3rd land drop in limited or whatever, then you'll be happy to plane cycle a thing, because then you get your 3rd land drop. I wasn't going to get to 6 mana to play a thing anyway. You know what I mean? I need my 3rd land before I can get to 6 mana. This again, there's more tension. Like maybe I don't want to plane cycle this. I just want to play it and get to the 5 mana naturally. The landfall is just Kazandu Nectar Pot or Jade Offshoot. We've seen cards like this before at much lower mana costs. But I still like Gain a Life, Landfall. Landfall's a fun ability. I pop for Landfall too much. But altogether, I kind of like it. Probably not standard playable in any way, shape, or form. But all that said, I just think it's a cool card. I'm going to give this a 3.75. Razor Rings is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an instant. Deals 4 damage to an attacking or blocking creature. You gain life equal to the excess damage dealt this way. Cool, but not necessarily the best 2 mana white removal spell. Not even in the top 3 for standard. So I'm just going to give this a 3.3. It's still a decent removal spell, but not where it needs to be. Sandbender Storm is 4 mana. Instant speed, choose 1. Destroy target creature power 4 or greater. Or Earthbend 3. I like an instant speed, like a flash 3/3 for 4 mana. It ain't too bad, But that said, again, not playable in standard. not for 4 mana. So I guess draft it up all you want to, kid. But you're not putting this in a deck. I'm going to give this a 3. I think it's, 2.9. We'll go 2.9 on that bad boy. South Pole Voyager, good in your allies deck. 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human scout ally. Whenever this creature or another ally you control enters, gain a life. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, draw a card. So you get kind of a Soul Sister effect, Soul Warden, something like that. Impassioned Orator, more like it, because it's 2 mana this time. Life Creed Duo, there's the standard analog to it. But you sometimes also draw a card. So you have to play 2 allies in a turn, and there's also a bunch of allies that put 2 allies on the table because they give you a token or whatever. This is really, really good with those. So if you're building allies in standard, this is another, I think auto include, definitely throw that bad boy in for sure. So in the context of that deck, I will give this a 6.1. I think this is actually a fantastic Magic card in the allies deck, and it's one of those cards that makes it look like it could single-handedly make allies playable. Just getting a draw engine like this in an aggro deck, it's probably pretty good, But Southern Air Temple, our first shrine, ladies and gentlemen, buckle in. 4 mana, 3 and a white for a legendary shrine enchantment. When it enters, put an X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control, X being the number of shrines you control. Whenever another shrine you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Probably the weakest shrine in the set. We saw some good ones in this thing, believe it or not, but this is not necessarily one of them, so you'll play in your shrine deck because you have to. How strong are shrines in standard? We'll see. I'm just going to give this a 3 for now because it's a shrine. And that's the only real reason. Suki, Courageous Rescuer, is 3 mana, 1 and double white for a 2/4 legendary human warrior ally. Other creatures you control get +1/+0. Whenever another permanent you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. All right, so chat, look alive. What is it? What is it, ladies and gentlemen? How is it? What do you think this card scores? Cutting into my speedrun time to ask the chat who is here right now, here tonight, what they would score Suki, Courageous Rescuer. 3 mana, 2/4. decent stat line, you know, gets above certain played removal spells in standard, always a desirable stat line. Built-in battle cry at all times, whether it attacks or not. That's pretty good. Little anthem effect for 3 mana. Okay. Decent creature types, including human and warrior, not just ally. And, you know, whether you're bouncing a permanent or blinking a permanent, air bending a permanent, or the permanents just die, you at least get 1 token per turn, and it's pretty easy to make that happen. So what do you think? All right. To Greece, it says a 3. Wow. You are hard on cards. Steel 169 with a 4.5. Underwear with a 4. High all the time monkey 3.5, 3.45. Whew, Fu Lewis with a 6. That's okay. Rain with a 3.6. Just Ann's 94 with airbending 5.8. Okay, we're getting there. Social experiment insanity. 5.2. Ed Snark with a 5. Quantum Runner X says Suki's a 4.5. Lido with a 5.3. So we got a lot of ratings on this one, and they're kind of all over the place. A few of you are really, really hard on this card. 5.1, 5.5 from Ragnarok and Palrog. Orzhov would love it. Yeah, you know, like maybe some sort of sacrifice deck where your, you know, permanents are leaving the battlefield for sure. And it gives you more sacrifice fodder. And it gives you that sacrifice fodder immediately. Like it turns all your creatures into like Doom Travelers, you know, or I guess in this format, like Infestation Sages, you know, like they leave behind a creature when you sack them. It could flip your Sephiroth, even though it's on the same, you know, spot on the curve as your Seph. So keep that in mind. But altogether, I think it's okay. You know, it actually leaves behind 2/1s. Keep that in mind. It looks like it makes 1/1 every turn. It makes a 2/1 every turn because of the static ability. Altogether, dude, I think it's a decent package. I think it's a pretty decent package, man. It's competing with my Delany spot, so yeah. You only get the guy once, but yeah, I think that's fine. I think that people judge the once per turn and on your turn clauses like way too harshly for 1v1s. In Commander, I can see getting upset about this. In 1v1s, you know, it gives you, in 1v1s, it's a relatively difficult to kill for the mana cost. Bitter Blossom that also gives you an anthem effect. You know, a token every turn and an anthem. Creature Factory and an anthem. I think it's fine. I think Sanguine Evangelist is a better card than this. Would you Chad agree with that? Would Sanguine Evangelist greater than Suki Courageous Rescuer, especially given that Sanguine Evangelist is not legendary, right? So, but Sanguine Evangelist is like a 6.5. You know what I mean? So if you're a little worse than Sanguine Evangelist, I'm going to give you a 5.9. And I kind of want to go higher, honestly. Yeah, playing this with Elspeth. It's really good with Elspeth. Yeah, it's fantastic with that card. So, I don't know. I think there's setups with it. I think there are. I'll give it a 6. I'll push this to a 6. I think it's a fine Magic card. I do. United Front is X and double white for a sorcery. Create X 1/1 white ally creature tokens, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that you control. It's one of these. I love cards like this. I don't know if they're playable, but there are standard environments where they are playable. That said, what do we always have? We already had like Song of Totentants, and that card's not good. And it's technically more mana efficient than this. But on this, you get a bunch of 2/2s, and it gets counters on stuff you already controlled. And they block, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. It might be all right. This is another one that's really good with Elspeth. And if you're ramping it all, it might be okay. I'm kind of a sucker for cards like this, but I don't want to be a sucker, so I'm going to give this a 5.8. You know? Even X being 0 is good. Yeah, just put a +1/+1 counter on all your guys. Right. Like, that's okay, you know? But I love X spells in general, and when they fill my board with tokens, I really like them. So any Secure the Waste effect, I'm going to give a high-ish score to, but I'm not going to get too excited about this one. I think it's got to find a place. Vengeful Villagers is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 3/3 human citizen. When it attacks, choose target creature an opponent controls, tap it, then you may sacrifice an artifact creature. If you do, put a stun counter on the chosen creature. Very limited playable, I think. I think this is actually really, really, really irritating in limited, especially pre-release, where you just tap their bomb down like every other turn. It's not bad, but still, I'm going to give Villagers like a 2.4. I don't think it's very good outside of limited at all. Water Tribe Captain is a pretty normal card. 3 mana for a 3/3 human soldier ally. Pay 5 mana. No water bending allowed. Just pay 5 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Pretty terrible. We'll give this a 2.1. Something like that. It's at least a 3 mana 3/3. Water Tribe Rallier is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier ally with Water Bend 5. See, this is how you do it. Water Bend 5. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Reveal a creature power 3 or less from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So I think it's okay. You can do this ability anytime you want to. It's instant speed. You can do it multiple times if you have the creatures and mana for it. The art is dope. I really like the palette that they used. So, and all these ladies look great. But it's an ally, it's a human, it's a soldier. These are all somewhat relevant creature types. And again, I think this could lead to some pretty decent value. I really do. Probably not, at the end of the day, standard playable. I think we have stronger 2-drops than this across the board. But I don't know. It's one that in certain decks I might even keep an eye out for. I really might. And it's cool that it says power 3 or less and not mana value 3 or less. So if you have like a 4 or 5 drop with 2 power or 3 power, you know, you make it work. But altogether, I can't get too excited about it. I'm just going to give this a 4. I think that it's, you know, it's not embarrassing. It's really not embarrassing. Yip Yip is our final white card. It seemed like an awful lot of white cards. This is a single white mana. Another lesson for 1. So we found another one. 1 white mana for an instant speed lesson. A creature you control gets +2/+2 till end of turn. If that creature is an ally, it gains flying until end of turn as well. So not bad as far as limited like combat tricks go, I guess. But that's about where it begins and ends. So we'll go 2.7 on this. First blue card is pretty ridiculous looking. This is Accumulate Wisdom. Brand new card from today. 2 mana, 1 on a blue for an instant speed lesson. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand. The rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. Put each of those cards, all 3 of them, into your hand. Instead, if there are 3 or more lesson cards in your graveyard. I think this is bonkers. I think this card is BANANASASASAS. Bananas. Bananas. With mill, it shouldn't be too hard to get a bunch of lessons in your yard. And I think that there are plenty of lessons in this set that make it worth it to play lessons. A lot of lessons look very strong. Very strong. I mean, we just saw like 4 in white that are playable. So you can see a bunch more that are more playable than any of the ones we've seen so far. So in decks where you're kind of milling yourself anyway, I think it's pretty easy to turn this into 3 mana instant speed draw 3. At which point it's the strongest card in the set. 2 mana instant speed draw 3 is unheard of outside of Ancestral Recall. You know, it's double Ancestral Recall's casting cost, but you'll pay it. You'll absolutely pay that. This goes from, you know, just regular old Anticipate with, you know, strictly better Anticipate for what it's worth. 2 Serum Visions, like really, really fast. You don't have to cast these lessons, y'all. You can just throw them in your yard somehow. You know, mill them, discard them, whatever. And then I think very quickly in the game, you've got this. So I think this card is crazy. I'm going to give this a high score. I'm going to overrate it, to be honest, because I don't know that it's possible to overrate it. What's up, Thunderspin? Thunderspin Jitsu, the first time chatter. It's good to have you. I'm seriously going to give Accumulate Wisdom like an 8.2. I'm serious. I think this is a crazy Magic card. And with the lessons we've seen just in this set, and maybe we'll get more lessons in Strixhaven, so keep that in mind. But yeah, Accumulate's next stock up for like $10. I really think that with the power level of lessons we've seen in the set, this could go so hard. So hard. I really do think this card is boss. Bossa Nova. Too. Accumulate Wisdom's one I've got some high hopes for, dude. But we'll see. We'll see. The next Treasure Cruise? Maybe. Maybe. I think Treasure Cruise is probably better in some ways. But when you think about it, it's comparable. It really is comparable to Treasure Cruise, right? Because what do you have to have like 7 things in your yard for a Treasure Cruise to pop off? This I have to have 3, but they're specific card type. Might be harder than I think, but I think it's easy. I really do. But next is Benevolent River Spirit. 2 blue mana for a 4/5 spirit as an additional cost to cast it, Waterbend 5. It has flying in Ward 2, and when it enters, Scry 2. Pretty decent package. Good as a backup to a Born Oculus, I think, in the Oculus decks. Maybe you just play like 1 or 2. But still pretty strong. You know, hard to actually get rid of. Really cool art. Gives you a nice ETB trigger. You know, I'm into it. So I'm going to give this card a 5. Like right at a solid 5. And I mean it. I mean every word of it. Boomerang Basics is a single blue mana for a sorcery speed lesson. Return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. Nice. You can't actually use it to save a creature because it's a sorcery. So be careful with that. But if you're just using it like a pixie or something, then drawing a card is not bad. Not terrible. So I don't know. I'll give it a 4.4. I think that it's close-ish. Crashing Wave is a trap. This is 2 blue mana for a sorcery as an additional cost to cast it. Waterbend X. Tap up to X target creatures, then distribute 3 stun counters among tapped creatures your opponents control. Now, my favorite thing about this is that you can play for 2 blue mana, just 2, no X, don't waterbend at all, just 2 blue mana, and then put stun counters on stuff that's already tapped. You don't have to tap Jack for this to be an effective Magic card. If you just pay 3 mana for it, 3 stun counters on one guy is okay. It's really not so terrible. Oh, and yeah, Boomerang can be in your graveyard so you can draw 3. That's a good point. This is a single blue mana for tempo that actually gets you closer to drawing 3 off of this thing. Accumulate Wisdom. So yeah, good catch on that. That makes Boomerang, get it? Good catch, Boomerang. Makes Boomerang a little bit better. But Wave on the other end. I think that people want this to be like X equals 4, tap down all their stuff, but I don't actually think this is great. I could be wrong. I'm willing to take a hit on this one. I could be wrong on this card, but we just saw Hide on the Ceiling, which is probably a better card for what it's worth than this. And that card has seen no motion in Standard, at the very least. Motion in Commander, but no real motion in Standard. So, Wave is fine, but I can't really give it more than like a 4, Next is Ember Island Production, 5 mana, 3 and double blue for a sorcery. Choose one. You get a token that's a copy of a guy you control, except it isn't legendary, and it's a 4/4 hero in addition to other types. Or create a token that's a copy of a thing an opponent controls, a creature an opponent controls, except it's not legendary, and it's a 2/2 coward in addition to its other types. Now this is a very interesting Magic card, and yet another thing like all the stuff we saw in the Spidey set that, doesn't care about legendary. Casts legendary aside. That's pretty cool. And I like that it can upgrade creatures from like a 1/3 to a 4/4. That's kind of cute. But altogether, 5 mana is probably too much for Standard play. So I'm just going to give this a 3.9 and move on. I really think it's in that tier. First time flyer is 2 mana. That was me when I went to shuffle up and play. The first time I ever flew in my life. This is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 human pilot ally with flying. This creature gets +1/+1 as long as there's a lesson in your yard. So firmly limited lesson deck for sure. But I guess as soon as you have a 2/3 flyer, it's okay there. But nowhere else. I'm going to give this a 2.5. Flexible Waterbender is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 2/5 human warrior ally with vigilance. Waterbend 3, this creature has base PT 5/2 until end of turn. Again, very, very firmly limited, I think, here. I'm just going to give this like a 2.1. I really don't like it. Forecasting Fortune Teller is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human advisor ally. When it enters, you get a clue. So, kind of a novice inspector, Thraben inspector, but it costs double what they cost. But even that said, that's a misleading statement. It only costs 2 mana, which is fine. So, I can't hate this. I'm going to give it a 5. To respect the pedigree of Novice Inspector and Thraben Inspector before that, I will give this a 5. Geyser Leaper is... No, I won't. This is a 4.8. 2 mana is more than 1 mana. This is a 4.8. Geyser Leaper is 5 mana, 4 and a blue for a 4/3 human warrior ally with flying. Waterbend 4, draw, and then discard. Pretty crappy. Pretty limited. I do like the art on it, though. This thing he's doing is cool. I'm going to give this a 2.5 mana, 4 power flyer. Man, actually, for a common, this is good and limited, right? A 5 mana, 4 power flyer that gets you deeper into your deck. So it's kind of okay. Limited good. Actual real world applications, 2.5. Giant Koi is 6 mana, 4 and double blue for a 5/7 fish with Waterbend 3. This creature can't be blocked this turn. Also has Island Cycling for 2 mana. So this, like I was saying earlier, this one you actually do Island Cycle on turn 2 when you need your 3rd or 4th land. You do that every time. If you draw it late in the game, though, it just wins you the game. Like 5 unblockable power every turn. Yes. That's pretty good. Remember, I haven't said this yet in this video. Waterbend can be paid with artifacts and creatures, but you can just pay mana for it too. So if you paid 6 mana for Giant Koi, it's reasonable that the turn you'd be able to attack with it, you have 3 mana. Right? You'd probably pull that off. And probably not too many cards in your hand because this costs so much. It might have been the last card you cast. So, yeah. I think there's a world where this wins a ton of limited games. I'm playing this in pre-release, dude. Seriously, this is good. This is a good, decent card. But again, Standard, as cool as this card looks, it really does look awesome. I'm going to give this a 2.7. I'll give it a 2.7. Grand is a single blue mana for a 1/2 legendary human peasant ally. When Grand becomes tapped, draw a card, then discard a card. Woo! Non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast as long as there are 3 or more lesson cards in your graveyard. Again, one of the better lesson payoffs. And then it makes other lessons cheaper to play eventually, right? I have so many lessons in my deck, I'm sure eventually I'll have 3 lessons, and this makes further lessons cheaper. That's dope. But all my non-creature spells, whether it's enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers, whatever, cheaper now that I have 3 guys or 3 lessons in the yard. And I think it's pretty easy to get 3 lessons in there. A single blue mana is a steal for this, and the fact that you can like crew vehicles or station planets or spacecraft or whatever, or tap it down in myriad other ways without attacking with it. And loot, yeah, it's good. I think for 1 mana, this is a pretty decent investment, man. I really do. Chat. Second time tonight, chat. You got a white card. Now I'll give you a blue card. Give me Grand. Rate this card. What do you think? Also, yeah, YouTube comment section. I'm interested in your take on Grand. What do you think this actually is? I think it's a really cool card, designed very well. She is efficient. She does multiple things, both of which have a decent effect on a game of Magic. You know, what are you thinking? What are you thinking, ladies and gentlemen? Grand 3.8, solid 6, 5.25, 6.1. We got a couple of close scores here. Fine and limited 5+, standard 3.5 might do something. Lava being 4. To Grease with a 5.5. By the way, Twister said all that about limited and standard might do something. Steel with a 4. 4 normal 5.5 in allies. Maybe in allies, yeah, I see that. Social Experiment Insanity 4.7. Rain with a 5.1. Lido Jr. 5.8. This versus Aunt May. Porque no los dos. Or who would win in a fight? I guess they tire each other out, right? Because Aunt May's a 0-2. This is a 1-2. Neither one of them kill each other. They just get together and make pies. You know, trade stories about their grandchildren, you know. You can turn that draw 3 into a 1 blue mana with it Lido. I like the way you think. Yeah, that's 100% true. That that you can just play Ancestral Recall in standard if you've got this enabled. You absolutely can. Yeah, I think this is solid, man. Pretty specialized to lessons, but as I've already said, I don't think that that's necessarily a problem. And especially, in blue, the lesson specific cards look really strong. So I'm going to give this, especially if you go first, you can like sneak in an attack on turn 2 with it and loot. I think that's pretty good. Just run up and slap them and then loot. That's pretty good. I'm going to go for a 6. No higher though, but I'm going to go for a 6 on this. I think it's pretty good. Honest Work is a blue mana. This is an aura that enchants a creature an opponent controls. When it enters, tap enchanted creature, remove all counters from it. Okay. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a citizen with base power and toughness 1/1 and tap colorless. Add colorless. Named Humble Merchant. So a take on witness protection of sorts. I think it's probably worse than witness protection, but interestingly, it works nicely against like Mossborn Hydra, right? Usually witness protection would just be like, well, if they've already got a bunch of counters on Hydra, witness protection doesn't do anything. But this at least, removes like blanks all the counters. I like that. But that might not be great in every situation. I'm going to give this like a 4.8. I think as far as removal goes, it's good, but not as good as some of the other options we have. Iguana Parrot is 3 mana. I like this card. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 lizard bird pirate with flying, vigilance, and prowess. Flying, vigilance, and prowess. That's not bad. Like, I don't think that it's playing like, I don't think that we're going for standard. Is this our best Windrake yet? I don't know, man. We saw that 2/3 earlier. It's all right. There was just a flash one in the Spider-Man set you can play for 1 mana with Mayhem. He's pretty good. So I don't know, but it is good. I'd say that especially if you have all your mana untapped, this guy's kind of solid, He's not like slick shot show off or anything, but I think he's all right. I'll give Iguana Parrot 3.8. Probably relegated to limited, but Flying Vigilance Prowess is actually so much scarier than it looks, But Invasion Submersible, Pauper playable? Probably not, but maybe. Invasion Submersible is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 0/0 vehicle. You cannot actually crew this the normal way, but when it enters, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Has Exhaust, Waterbend 3, becomes an artifact creature, and it gets 3 +1/+1 counters. So kind of, in a way, a 3-mana 3/3 that is also Mana War. Well, not Mana War. Mana War's creatures, I believe. This is non-land permanent, which is even better. So, solid Magic card, but it's still, you won't play Mana Wars in Standard nowadays. So, I will just give this a 4.1. It's something like that. Top 10 ways to tap Grand, though. Trevor, something, first time chat to say that. It was a very good use of first time chat. Rex Cogitans. I think it's hard to tell until you try to put together the actual decks. Yeah, sometimes it can be. I think Lessons is all right, though. It'll Quench You, speaking of, is 2 mana, 1 and a blue for an instant speed lesson. Counter a spell unless its controller pays 2. Do you get it? It's Quench. It's literally just Quench, but also a reference to the show. Great. Excellent job. I'm pretty sure this one is Carmen Clomperens, if I'm not mistaken, that specifically wanted to, like, had the idea for this card, but I might be getting the person wrong. But either way, cool card here. Quench is sometimes a playable effect. We have better versions of this right now, but the upside is that it's a lesson. And especially as we've seen in blue, there's tremendous payoff to getting 3 lessons in your yard. So it might be worth doing. I'm going to give this, a 3.5. I say that cancels get a 3.5. That's my baseline. And if a cancel gets a 3.5, I guess this will too. But Katara Bending Prodigy is next. 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human warrior ally. At the beginning of your end step, if Katara is tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on her. Waterbend 6 to draw a card. So you're supposed to tap her for her own Waterbend ability. But 6 mana, even with the ability to tap stuff down, is a little bit too much to be drawing cards for. I do like that it is an open-ended, not tap ability that draws a card for any amount of colorless mana. And in Commander, that can sometimes be a really relevant thing if you have ways of making infinite any color mana. Because now you can draw your deck. But outside of that really, really, narrow application, and again, we're not even really talking about Commander here, I don't see too much good on this. So, maybe, just maybe, a Pauper Commander, a PDH Commander. But apart from that, no. So I'm just going to give Katara like a 3.5. Yeah, I'll 2 in a row. I'll give her a 3.5. Knowledge Seeker is a card I actually really like. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Fox Spirit with Vigilance. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this Fox. When this creature dies, create a clue token. So you get a good death trigger on this. It grows steadily throughout the game, has a keyword ability, and is pretty efficient to cast in the first place. Not the best blue 2-drop in Standard, but okay. It's okay as far as value goes. It's got some, so I like it. I'll give this card a bang on 5, right out of 5. I think there's arguments for it. You won't play it over Flood Pit's Drowner or anything in blue, but I still think it's a fun card. Would have been strong 5 years ago, so that's a 5. 5 years ago it would have been a 6. Now it's a 5. The Legend of Kuruk is 4 mana, 2 and double blue for an enchantment. It's a saga. On chapters 1 and 2, you scry 2 and then draw a card. And then, on chapter 3, you exile it, return to transformed as Avatar Kuruk. This is a 4/3 legendary avatar. Whenever you cast a spell, you get a 1/1 colorless spirit token with spirit. We call it Spirit Shadow. The creature token cannot be blocked or cannot block non-spirit creatures. Also has exhaust, Waterbend 20. Take an extra turn after this one. So remember, exhaust is once per game, so you can't just take a bunch of extra turns. But if you can figure it out, you can take an extra turn. But that's not the cool part of this card. The cool part of this card is the fact that it draws 2, scries a total of 4. So it finds 2 pretty decent cards for you. And then becomes a 4/3 with this ability. Not whenever you cast a non-creature spell, not whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, not whenever you cast a creature or an artifact. No, cast a spell. Whenever you cast a spell, get a 1/1. I think that's pretty decent. I really do. It takes until turn 6 to flip into this, but do keep in mind that when you flip into this guy, you have all of your mana available. It's just past your draw step, cowboy. You haven't cast a spell yet, presumably. So you have a bunch of mana available and can probably fill the board with these guys. And I kind of like that. I don't think it provides a ton of upfront value. 4 mana to scry 2 and draw a card, not great. But maybe you get extra value out of it being an enchantment. Just all together, I don't want to hate this. I'm going to give this a 5.5. Can I get away with a 5.5? Seems overcosted in every way. Nah, if it cost 5 or 6, it would be. But this is one of those that on turn 2, the second turn it's in play, I think it justifies its existence. You know? And your opponent will probably let it ride. I don't think they'll always let it ride and, you know, you get to keep the creature or anything, but I do think that scry 2, draw a card, especially on the second turn it's in play, you have all your mana open to you. Scry 2, draw the best card in the top couple of cards. Yeah, I think that's justifiable. I do. Think about it this way. Okay? 4 mana draw 2s have been playable in Standard over and over again. You know, since before Chemister's Insight. And Chemister's Insight was a long time ago. All the way up to Memory Deluge. 4 mana draw 2s have been playable in Standard. And when you think about it, compared to Memory Deluge, this is a thing. You know, Memory Deluge is draw 4, or scry 4, draw 2, right? This is scry 4, draw 2. Just on 2 different turns. You know what I mean? I bet you average getting 1 spirit off this before it dies. Well, it depends on how many instants you have in your hand or whatever. But remember, you didn't just get a spirit. You also got 2 cards. It replaced itself in your hand twice with the best card from the top 2. I just think it's okay. Don't know if it sees any play, because where does it go? I mean, it's not like a mono blue mid-range deck in Standard right now. So again, I can't score it too highly, but I do kind of like it. I do kind of like this. I think it's underrated. As evidenced by the conversation we're having. I think this is a little bit better than it looks. But what did we settle on? A 5.5? Give me that at least. Lost Days is 5 mana, 4 and a blue for an instant speed lesson. The owner of target creature or enchantment puts it into their library second from the top or on the bottom. You get a clue token. This is too expensive for a time ebb stapled to a clue deck, or, you know, a clue token. It's not great. It really isn't. So I'm going to give this pretty low score. Technically a removal spell like Time Ebb Effect, but still not good. 2.6. I'm not a huge fan. Master Paku is a pretty weird card. 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human advisor ally with prowess. When Paku becomes tapped, target player mills X cards, where X is the number of lesson cards in your graveyard. So another payoff for getting lessons into your graveyard. This would be really cute as your commander if you could somehow find a way to get freed from the reel out of your deck. You know, you'd have to draw enough cards or somehow tutor it up, which is really tough to do in mono blue. But if you can get a freed from the reel in play and like even just 2 or 3 lessons in your yard in commander, you've got a fun commander, because like pay a blue mana, tap him, mill somebody, untap him for a blue mana, play a blue mana, tap him, mill somebody. You just do this all over and over. And I want to try it, but in Standard, poop. You know, it's poop. We've seen a couple of decent cards in blue that care about having a bunch of lessons in your yard. I don't think this is one of them. I don't think this is very good at all, to be honest. So I'm just going to give Paku a 2.9. I really think this is a stinker. I really do think this is kind of bad. But yeah, mill and limited maybe. Yeah, maybe that's what it's made for. That's what it's made for. The Mechanist Aerial Artisan is up next. The Mechanist is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human artificer ally. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a clue token. It's on. Tap. Until end of turn, target artifact token you control becomes a 3/1 construct artifact creature with flying. So this guy is 3 mana to make 3/1 flyers. It's just till end of turn, but you're guaranteed clue tokens before too long. You might get a pretty steady stream of them for what it's worth. And 3/1 flyers are good. That's not bad. I don't think this is Standard playable. Don't get it twisted. I think this is a card that's probably going to be like 50 cents, and I'm going to order when the set comes out and put in most of my blue commander decks. Most of my Izzet Spellslinger decks and stuff. My, you know, Niv Mizzet deck, my Locust God deck, whatever. My Tella deck. This is going in all of those. And it's probably good there. You know, I'm a sucker for whenever you cast a non-creature spell, do anything. You know, that's I'm listening, you know. But in Standard, this is probably just abject crap. I'm just kidding, right? And that's what we're rating for. So if I was rating it for 10 cards rated casual commander, it might get like a 6.3 or something. But we're talking Standard and other competitive 1v1s. Baby, this is just awful. I'm going to give this like a 4, you know. It's not good. Transmute to tutor and commander. Yes, that is what you do. With Master Paku, that is what you do. You transmute like a muddle to mixture and go get it. Yeah, or whatever. Yes, that's what you do. Next is North Pole Patrol. This is, again, the first movie I was ever in. Don't look it up. North Pole Patrol is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human soldier ally. Tap to untap another target permanent you control. Water Bin 3 and tap to tap target creature an opponent controls. Do you see? You see what they're doing? I do like this because you can untap a thing and then tap it back down to waterbend, and like that's how you get 2 mills off Master Paku in one turn or something. That could be cute. 2 loots off Grand in the same turn. North Pole Patrol can do that, but all things considered, it's pretty bad. I'm sorry, but even in limited, I don't know if you really want to play this too much, but maybe you end up getting in the loop where you use one to untap the other, and that does something. There are loops like that when you get like 2 copies of the same thing that do this, but I'm not sure we're doing it right now. I'm gonna give this a 2.3. It's not great. The best thing this does is ramp, right? It's mono blue ramp, but it's not like we haven't seen it a million times. Octopus Form is a single blue mana for an instant speed lesson. Target creature you control gets +1/+1, gains hexproof till end of turn. Untap it on a lesson. So this is right up there with, Avatar Form or whatever. I'm going to give this a 5.9 though. I think it's a great protection spell. Really, really good protection spell. Not as good as Snakeskin Veil, but I do like the untapping of the creature. I think that's pretty good gravy. And protection spell like this, playable at the very least. I'd give Shore up a 5.9, so I'll give Octopus Form a 5.9. Otter Penguin is a 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Otter Bird. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, this guy gets +1/+2 until EOT and cannot be blocked this turn. So a 3-power unblockable guy when you draw your second card. Not great. Just not. I'm going to give this... Why does it suddenly have 4 fins? Just because it's an otter. It's pretty bad. It's pretty okay, but not good, but also not bad. That means it's a 3. There's a solid 3 on this dude. Rowdy Snowballers is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 human peasant ally. When it enters, tap a creature an opponent controls, throw a stun counter on that thing. So it's a Frostlinks. It's literally exactly Frostlinks. What do you give Frostlinks? 3.5. Not even. It's like a 3.3. Secret of Bloodbending is 4 blue mana for a sorcery speed lesson. It's also a trap. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may waterbend 10. You control target opponent during their next combat phase. If this spell's additional cost was paid, you control that player during their next turn. Instead, exile Secret of Bloodbending. Oh my god, it's awful. It's not good at all, dude. I don't know. I've seen people get kind of excited about this because it's Mindslayer. No, not really. Not really. Waterbend 10 is nuts, bro. So I guess if you control them during the next combat step, this is just a 4 mana fog in mono blue. How good is that? Maybe all right, but probably not good enough. So I'm just going to give this like a 3, like straight up. I don't think this card's very good at all. I'm sorry to burst bubbles. Serpent of the Past is 7 mana, sort of. 5 and double blue for a 6/5 Serpent. If there are 3 or more lesson cards in your yard, you may cast this spell as though it had flash. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each non-creature, non-land card in your graveyard. That's pretty good. I don't think it's as good as Eddie Merc Crab for the, Tolarian Terror decks that just counter all your spells. I don't think it's up there, but I think it's at least comparable, and those cards are proven really good. So I'm going to give this a 5.1. I'll do that. Take it easy, Dark Soul Mind's Eyes. You said you couldn't stay long. Glad to have you here. Sokka's Haiku is a cute card because the text box, if you haven't noticed yet, is a haiku. This is 5 mana, 3 and double blue for an instant speed lesson. Counter target spell, draw a card and mill 3 cards, and untap target land. So untap target land is always a pretty disgusting thing to be able to do, depending on what's in your deck. And especially in Commander, that can be a righteous ability. Cabal Coffers and Lake of the Dead and Nykthos Shrine to Nyx and 3 Tree City and blah, 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 blah. It's a lot of good lands to untap in Commander with this. But as far as Standard goes, I'm not sure that anyone wants a 5 mana counterspell. So I'm just going to give this a 3.5. Same territory as a cancel, again. Next is the Spirit Oasis, the best shrine, I think, in the set. If it's not this one, it's the black one. Red one's pretty good too. Decent shrines. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a legendary shrine enchantment. When the Spirit Oasis enters, draw a card for each shrine you control. Whenever another shrine you control enters, draw a card. Okay. That could draw 2, 3 when it ETBs, and then like 3 or 4 more as the game goes on. Pretty good engine here. And I believe it was Saffron Olive that first pointed out, the first time I saw it at least on Twitter, that apparently the blue card draw shrine costs like 1 less every time they print it. It's like the 3rd time they printed one like this. It keeps costing less and less. That is a pretty good indicator of power creep. But in this case, I'll take it. I think this is a very powerful shrine, and I will give this a 5.9. It's still a shrine at the end of the day. Bars. Spirit Water Revival is also a trap, but it's a pretty decent trap. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 blue for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast it, you can water bin 6 if you'd like. Draw 2 cards. If this spell's additional cost was paid, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw 7 cards. You have no max hand size for the rest of the game, and exile Spirit Water Revival. So kind of a time twister. However, unlike a lot of twister effects, this doesn't make you like shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library. You just shuffle your graveyard into your library and draw 7. So if you already had 7 in your hand, you now have 14 cards in your hand. If you had like 4 cards in your hand, right, you have 11, which is pretty good. Water bin 6 is lowish. You know, we just saw water bin 20. We saw water bin 10. Those are obviously like joke water bin amounts. This one, a little bit more achievable, actually. Depending on like how many artifacts and stuff you have in play, it could be done. So I don't think that this is a necessarily an out of bounds time twister variant. I think as far as twister variants go, this is one of the better ones we've seen in a minute, dude. And as Chad is pointing out, Lord Bios, a 3 mana draw 2 might just be playable. You know, it's a divination. Cost a little bit more. Well, not more, but like harder to cast than divination. But still, divination has proven to be a playable magic card on occasion. If you need to draw 2, you'll take the card advantage, right? So altogether, the floor on this is, you know, not high, but not low. Well, that's good. And the ceiling is, the ceiling's up there. There's cathedral ceilings on this thing. So I'm actually going to give this, again, I think it is a trap for most intents and purposes. I don't think most blue decks that want a sorcery speed draw effect are going to play a bunch of creatures to tap down and blah, blah. It's going to be tough. However, I'm still going to give this a 5.5. Not the highest score in the world, but I do have some faith in this card. I really do. Yeah, not a lesson. That sucks. The one thing in the set's not a lesson. Teo, Spirited Glider is 4 mana. This reminds me of the guy from Kiki's Delivery Service. Like, obviously not Kiki, but the dude with the flying bike. It looks just like him to me, except for his hair is like a different color, but he's like the same level of goofy. He brings the same energy, brings the same vibe. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 1/4 legendary human pilot ally with flying. Whenever one or more creatures you control with flying attack, draw a card and then discard a card. When you discard a non-land this way, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. So kind of a connivey ability. And a loot. You know, a loot every turn in your flying deck is good, but again, relegated to limited, costs way too much for any other format. Unless you're doing like Budget Commander or something like that. It could work. But altogether, I'm just going to give this a 3.6. 3.6? I think it's actually kind of cool. But next we'll look at Tiger Seal, a single blue mana for a 3/3 cat seal, cat cube. This has vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, tap this creature. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, untap this creature. Look at the little baby. Look at the little baby one. This card's a 10, obviously. Tiger Seal? Baby Tiger Seal at that? 11. If I had to actually not meme and rate this card, though, I think it's good. I think it's not really hard to draw 2 cards in a turn, and of all the payoffs we've seen for doing so, this is pretty high up on the list in this set. So I think that Tiger Seal could make for a blue or blue X aggro deck, the likes of which we haven't seen in a while, you know, or just might be a tempo thing. But altogether, good creature. Let's give this, it's kind of tough. Let's give Tiger Seal a 5. I want to give it more than that, but I'm just going to give it a 5. Ty Lee Chi Blocker is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 legendary human performer ally with flash and prowess. When Ty Lee enters, tap up to 1 target creature. It does not untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Ty Lee. So pretty good, you know, a Flood Pit's Drowner that basically keeps the stun counter on the creature the whole time it's in play and has flash. And I do think, again, that prowess is a really dangerous ability on this lady. I really do. So this is a good magic card. I'm actually fairly convinced this is decent. In Dimir aggro, as it's built right now, obviously you want Kaito to be your 3-drop, but that deck doesn't play another like signature 3-drop, right? Sometimes it's Preacher of the Schism, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's any number of things, honestly. So it's kind of tough to say. I think this could be a 1 or 2 of in Dimir aggro, though. And even outside of that deck, you know, Mono Blue Tempo takes over. You know, you get Flood Pits on turn 2, this on turn 3. And you're just being an annoying little jerk at that point. You know, so I do like a good bit about this. And again, I think the prowess is dangerous enough. You can start poking for 3-4 damage a turn. So not bad, actually. I'm going to give Ty Lee a 6.5. I think it's scarier Flood Pit. I think it's pretty good. It's actually, I think, in some ways more comparable to Brutal Cathar. Right? Like a flash Brutal Cathar with prowess. I think it's a lot more comparable to that. But Brutal Cathar is a good card. You know, it is. But the Unagi of Kyoshi Island is 5 mana. 3 in double blue for a 5/5 legendary serpent with flash and waterbend 4 as a ward cost. Whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw 2 cards. So you get Fairy Mastermind. Literally Fairy Mastermind's best text. But it costs 5 mana. 5 mana is a lot. The deal is, though, it has flash. It has flash. That's pretty good. Now, this could just be, I think against a lot of opponents, this will end up being just ward 4. You know, ward tap 4 mana down. But, you know, they could tap their creatures. They might have an artifact or two. This de-incentivizes you from playing Get Lost in your deck. You don't want to give them things to tap down. This does work really well with Summon Leviathan. I want as many serpents with that card as possible, but that's a meme, not a good standard deck. So I'm not sure. As far as like standard potential win conditions go, I think we can do a lot better. It's certainly no God, like any of the win conditions we have right now. The Dragon, Meringue River region is the one I'm thinking of. Not anywhere near that level. And you can play precious few win conditions in like control decks. So I'm just not sure where it goes in standard. It looks much more like a commander card. But you can't discount a 5 mana 5/5 flash with a waterbend. With a ward ability. Just that in and of itself is kind of really good. You know? Yeah, I wish it wasn't legendary. Yeah, me too. Me too. But even if all you have is in play is 1, I think you're doing okay. I really do. But I don't know. I want to rate this highly, but it's kind of tough to in standard because 5 mana is a bit steep. I'm going to give this... You know what? I'm going to give this a 5.6. I have faith in the flash. I have some faith in the flash and the ward cost. The ward cost is pretty high. Now, Wan Shi Tong Librarian might be the best commander card in the entire set, but how good are you in standard? This is double blue and X for a 1/1 legendary bird spirit with flash and flying and vigilance. When Wan Shi Tong enters, put X +1/+1 counters on him, then draw half X cards rounded down. So it's Hydroid Krasis already. Whenever an opponent searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on Wan Shi Tong and draw a card. So this works on fetch lands, and you know we have some decks that play Fable Passage and Evolving Wilds in standard, but there aren't a ton of tutor effects in standard. Not a whole lot. So there's that to worry about. But as it stands, it's just Hydroid Krasis. You know, it doesn't gain you any life or anything, but Hydroid Krasis didn't have flash and vigilance either. So. You know, and Hydroid Krasis, am I crazy or did that cost double X? I don't think so. But Hydroid Krasis is a hell of a callback, and especially given it flash is stupid. It's really good. We're talking about, you know, control finishers. Yeah, the same 5 mana I'm paying for a 5/5 on Unagi Serpent or whatever. If I pay that 5 mana for this, I'm getting a 3/3. Not as good. But... you know, later on in the game, I can pretty easily get a 5/5 for 7 mana and draw, you know, 2 cards. I can get for 6 mana, I can get, you know, a 4/4 and draw 2. For 8 mana, which is not completely unheard of, I get 4 cards and a 6/6 flying vigilance with flash. And honestly, I don't think that is, you know, unrealistic for a control deck right now. Modality is important. Hydroid Krasis is really one of the cards that taught that to us. Modality on a creature like this is very good. So in Commander, I would give this like seriously a 9. I think this is just a ridiculous banger of a Commander card that you need to play in your blue decks. In Standard, has to find a home, but it's one of those I think it might. You know, kind of a mini Sphinx's Revelation on a giant attacker is very good. So for 6, it's a 5/5. Yeah, I'm actually doing my math wrong. It's already a 1/1. It's already I'm doing the math as though it were a 0/0. So good call on that. First time chatter, Oreo Fester. Or Oreo Feaster, maybe. You actually good call out there. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, actually, if you pay 5 mana for this, it's a 4/4. So gross. That's actually really good. Makes it a lot more tolerable. So I'm gonna actually give this. You know what? I'm gonna give this an 8. in standard. I really am. You know, Krasis was good. Krasis was good. It wasn't that long ago. And Krasis, you can't just flash that in, you know? So yeah. I think Sphinx's Revelation on a big body is pretty good. You know, you're not gaining any life, but this is pretty good. But anyway, you already found a deck? Mine. Guaranteed. Waterbender Ascension is 2 mana. 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a quest counter on this enchantment. Then, if it has 4 or more quest counters on it, draw a card. Waterbend 4, a creature can't be blocked this turn. Again, remember, you can just pay that with normal old mana. I like having a 2 mana enchantment that just lets me get creatures through unblocked. I actually think that's sneakily the best part of this card. But obviously, this is also an enduring curiosity for half price. But you have to get creatures in for combat damage in order to actually get this thing going. But, you know, you might be able to put a bunch of quest counters on it in the same turn. We have multiple creatures in standard that are naturally unblockable. They work really, really well with this. However, you have to skip a turn in order to get this down on an early enough turn to make it matter. So a lot of tension, a lot of push-pull on this card, but I like that about it. I don't think it makes it a particularly playable standard card, especially in a format where if you're going to play a 2 mana blue enchantment on turn 2, let's be honest, it's Prof's Eidetic Memory. So I don't even know if there's a spot for this really, but still an enchantment that just says, hey, whenever you want to get a creature through unblocked, guaranteed, that might be potentially very powerful. Again, especially in Commander, but in Standard, I think it takes a little bit too long to get online. You're not guaranteed to get 3 creatures through for combat damage. So I'm just not like convinced. You know, I think it might be a little bit too slow. Profs, yeah, that's banned. Is it? Is it? I'm not sure. We'll see. I will say Profs could be banned in a few days, right? You know, what is it? The November 12th? Am I getting the date right? Sometime in November, there's a ban announcement. And everyone thinks it's going to be VV, and it probably will be VV. But I wouldn't be surprised if they ban Profs. I would not be surprised. People will call for this to be banned before 2026. You're talking about the Owl? Maybe. But Ascension, I think, is a bit slow for Standard, but I'd see if I eat them words. But altogether, I'm going to give this I remember this is Standard, a 4.5. Seems a little low, but I think that's right. Waterbending Lesson is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a sorcery speed lesson. Draw 3 cards, then discard a card unless you waterbend 2. So if it were an instant, we'd be talking, but at sorcery speed, I'll just give Sift. This is Sift. It's from Tempest block. I will give Sift here a 3.6. It still draws 3. You can't hate that. Watery Grasp is a blue mana for an aura that enchants a creature. This creature does not untap during its controller's untap step. Waterbend 5, enchanted creature's owner shuffles it into their library. So strictly better Sleep Magic, if I'm not mistaken. I think Sleep Magic just taps it down. Well, actually, this doesn't tap it down. Okay, I see that now. It is not strictly better. This does not tap the creature down, but it should be easy enough to finagle. Altogether, though, these things are never that impressive. There's a lot of them. I'll give this a 3. UA, the Moon Spirit, is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 legendary spirit ally with flying and vigilance. Waterbend 5, tap. You may cast a non-creature spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Well, the art is the coolest part of this card. She is the coolest looking thing I've ever seen in my life. But this actually is probably Timmy bait more than anything. I'm just not convinced this is a great Magic card. I'm sorry. It could potentially put a huge thing into play for a very little in terms of how much actual mana you're paying. But you can't use it till the turn after it comes into play. It's killable by most played removal spells in Standard. I think it's a trap. I really do. 4, though. I'll give it a 4 just to respect it a little bit. The art is like a 10.5. We're in the black cards, y'all. Azula Always Lies. 1 and a black for an instant speed lesson. Choose one or both. The creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn, or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So this is kind of a skullduggery from the Ixalan set, but it costs 2 mana rather than 1, and the creature gets a +1/+1 counter rather than till EOT. This is a fun little limited like combat trick that's really good there. This effect is always better than it looks in limited, but not good in Standard. We'll give this a 2.2. Azula on the Hunt is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 4/3 legendary human noble with firebending 2. Whenever Azula attacks, you lose a life and create a clue token. This is solid value, but not Standard playable. I think it's a house in limited, though. I really do. I'm going to give this a 3.6 just because firebending 2 needs to be respected. Beetle-headed Merchants is 5 mana, 4 and a black for a 5/4 human citizen. Whenever it attacks, you may sack another creature or artifact. If you do, draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I think this is really good at the top end of your sacrifice decks in limited specifically. You draw a card extra every turn is good. And you'll have a 6/5 and then a 7/6 and an 8/7. Like, those are all pretty good marks to hit for a giant guy in limited. But in standard, it's dog poop. We're going to give this a 2.5. Boiling Rock Rider is probably not a great rare, but I could be wrong on this. 2 and a black for a 3/3 human rogue ally with firebending 1. Tap an untapped ally you control, including this guy, to exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever this creature attacks, you may cast an ally spell from among cards you own in exile with this creature. So, if you exile your own stuff with it from your own graveyard, you can eventually replay them. That might be cool, I guess. But it also messes around in your opponent's graveyard. Pretty cool stuff. I like the spread on this, but I'm just not sure at the end of the day that the mana cost is right. So I'm gonna respect it a little bit and give it a 4.8, but that's as much as I can respect it, to be honest. Yeah, sideboard card, maybe. Buzzard Wasp Colony. This is the most nightmare fuel of all the animal amalgamations in the set to me. 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 2/2 bird insect with flying. When it enters, you may sacrifice an artifact or a creature. If you do, draw a card. Whenever another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put its counters on this creature. Pretty decent package altogether. Again, especially in limited, where you're drawing cards, and that's pretty cool. At least the 1 card. And eventually, you might get a bunch of counters on this dude, and it flies. So I like it there, but Signpost Uncommon for limited does not translate into good standard cards. So 2.7. Callous Inspector is another take on Thraben Inspector. A single black mana for a 1/1 human soldier with menace. When it dies, it deals 1 damage to you, and you get a clue token. I'm just going to give this a 3.8. I don't think this is good as some of the other Thraben variants. Well, no, I gave the 2 mana blue one like a 4.8. So I'll give this a 4.7. I like that the blue one and the other inspectors just give you the clue. Just give me the clue. This you have to wait till it dies. And as a creature with a death trigger, it's not as good as Greedy Freebooter in standard, not as good as Nezumi Linkbreaker, not as good as Infestation Sage. There's a lot of better creatures for 1 mana in sacrifice than this. Canyon Crawler is 6 mana, 4 and double black for a 6/6 Spider Beast with Death Touch. When it enters, you get a food token. And its Swamp Cycles for 2. Normal cycling guy for limited. We'll just give him a 2.9. Cat Gator, my personal favorite card in the whole set. 7 mana, 6 and a black for a 3/2 fish crocodile with lifelink. When he enters, he deals damage equal to the number of swamps you control to any target. So Corrupt on a body. It has lifelink, so you gain the life when it hits too. You can blink this. You can reanimate this. You can, bounce this and play it again or whatever. And I hope to be doing a lot of that in this upcoming season. I really like this dude like an awful lot. He will be the very first card that I order from this set. He's going in my Moreland Devourer of Spiders Commander deck day 1. I've got plans for this little fella right here. I have to order 5 copies because I want to build a standard deck with 4. And then I need a commander deck with 1 copy too. But still, love this little guy. I think in Commander, he might be the next Gary. I think he's really, really good there. Even at 7 mana, I think he's super fun. But I don't think he translates to standard. I hate to do this to my guy because he is my guy. Like, more than any other thing in the set, this is my dude. But realistically, it's like a 4.4. It's not actually very good, but this is the thing I want to resolve the most from this set. I gotta cast this guy. I got a psychological, physical even need to play this spell. But anyway, Corrupt Court Official is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 1/1 human advisor. When it enters, an opponent discards a card. This is actually a reprint a couple times over at this point. But it's just a Burglar Rat, and I'll give Burglar Rat a 3.5. I'll get normal magic card, 3.5. Dai Li Indoctrination is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery speed lesson. Choose 1. Target opponent reveals their hand. Choose a non-land permanent from it, and that player discards that card. Or you can Earthbend 2. If they don't have any cards in their hand or whatever it is, you can just Earthbend 2 instead, which is fine, but only fine. I will say Pilfer and effects like it, just 2 mana, take a card out of their hand, are always okay. So I'm going to give this a 3.6 because it's a little bit better than a Pilfer, and that's fine. Day of Black Sun is a card I hate. This is 2 black mana and X for a sorcery. Each creature mana value X or less loses all abilities until end of turn, then destroy those creatures. Thanks for another sweeper like this, and it kills all of my creatures like the same way a Damnation would, while also stopping my death triggers. You know, because to kill most of my aristocrats dudes, this is only going to cost 2 mana. Especially if I'm playing Raise the Past. If I'm playing Raise the Past, sure, I can get all my creatures back, but I don't get the death triggers when you kill them with Day of Black Sun. Makes me so mad. We already had Ultima in the format, and that stops death triggers. Just stop it. Like, I want my death triggers. Why do you keep printing these sweepers that deny death triggers and whatnot? I hate it like so much, but I have to acknowledge it's a good card. Modal sweepers are typically fine. The longer the game goes on, and depending on what you're playing against, the card gets worse and worse. You know, if your opponent plays a Biza or something, well, now I got to pay 6 mana to blow up everything on the table. But, you know, if you play a 4-drop, then you can keep your 4-drop and blow up all the 3s and 2s and 1s, and that could be good too. So I think the card is more than playable. I'm going to give this a 6.9. I think it's a pretty good sweep, all things considered. Deadly Precision is a black mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 4 or sack an artifact or creature to destroy target creature. So we've seen a bunch of pieces like this. It's the upgraded Bone Splinters variant. They keep getting more and more upgraded, but I think this is a side grade. I think it's effectively exactly a card we've seen before, you know? So I'm just going to give this a 3.5 as well. Normal Magic card. Epic Downfall is a reprint of... No, is it? Actually, it's just 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery. Exile target creature, mana value 3 or greater. I feel like we've seen mana value 3 or less before. But still, yeah, sorcery speeds mana. Is this... I think this is a reprint, actually. I think this is actually a relatively recent reprint. Unless I'm crazy. Am I misremembering? Hold on. What? Were you printed anything else? It's killing me. Throne of Eldraine. Okay, so it was like somewhat recent. It was somewhat recent. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, what do you give this card? I mean, it has seen some play, hasn't it? You know? No, I wasn't thinking of Smother. I was thinking of this. Yeah, it kills Catramos. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'll give it a 4.5. It's a playable removal spell. It is a reprint. Fatal Fissure is maybe my least favorite card in the whole set. 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. Choose a creature. When that creature dies this turn, you Earthbend 4. So you can't save your guys with it, but you can replace their power toughness with a 4/4. If they're killing your Llanowar Elves, that's a pretty big upgrade. You know, you blew out that removal spell. So that's probably the best case scenario for something like this. You can also know that one of their creatures is going to die in combat, so you get to Earthbend 4. You can know that you have a removal spell for one of the guys, so you Earthbend 4. I don't like it, though. I think it takes a slot in your deck up. That's precious opportunity cost. I think that you have to wait for just the right situation to use the card. I think it's extra mana when you could be doing literally anything else. I think this is the classic lesson that a lot of people take a long time to learn in Magic. You know what I mean? Like, the card doesn't actually do anything unless you can do something else. And most of the time, that's just not good for a whole card. This takes a card. Forget the mana. It's a card in your hand, a card in your deck, a card you've cast. You need good cards. You know, so this card like is a personal affront to me, and I hope it doesn't end up being one of the better cards in the set. I really don't think it will be. I think this again is the classic lesson for some people that'll be like, ooh, Earthbend, okay, so I kill their 1/1 and I get a 4/4, let's go, you know, but like it's not gonna work that way. It'll rot in your hand for too long. It does seem pretty narrow, you're right. It's not even a lesson. Yeah, it's not even a lesson. It's crazy. It's so dumb. So, I don't know. And my cousin Jason in chat says, you know, and the lands will come back. If you like hit a land, you know, with like an Earthbend land, lands will come back unless you exile them. Nope. It's even if you exile them. Earthbend says whenever it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tab. So, you know, if you hit an Earthbend land with it and you, whatever, with your removal spell, you Earthbend 4, they still get their land back. So, I don't know, man. I wanted to save my creature or something. I've been talking about the card too long. I think it might actually be legit like the worst card in the set. I really do. Just personally offends me as a Magic card. I'm going to give this a 1. The Fire Nation Drill is 4 mana, 2 and double black for a 6/3 legendary vehicle artifact with trample and it crews for 2. When the Fire Nation Drill enters, you may tap it. When you do, destroy target creature with power 4 or less. I will tap this. Pay 1 mana, permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So Shadow Sphere, like random Shadow Sphere ability on this, and we know that's good. It's even good in standard some of the time. But this really is what it looks like. Every time I look at this card, I'm like, wait, really? Yeah, it really is. It's a Necrotal or a Ravenous Chupacabra, like something like that. A creature, a body that blows up another creature. It blows up most relevant creatures in standard, right? You can almost always find a target for this, right? And it's also a 6-power trampler that's easy to crew. All this for 4 mana? This card's a beast. Like, this is, weird that Drill can be your commander now. That's actually a good point, because vehicles can be commanders. This is a fun commander in some ways. Seems weak as a vehicle. It's a 4 mana, 6-power guy with trample. That's crazy. As opposed to Ghost Train, like, yeah, Ghost Train is a good, like, sack outlet, and it does have things it can do, especially in the munitions deck, the weapons manufacturing deck. But this is just a solid mid-range card. This is a super solid mid-range card, man. A 4 mana, 6-power trample that kills a guy? Yeah, man. I'm signed up for that, dude. I like it. I'm going to give this a reasonably high score. Seriously. I'm going to give this a 6.3. In case you've never played against Ravenous Chupacabra before, I think that they have improved Chupacabra enough to be playable. I don't know if Chupacabra would be playable in standard right now. I really don't. This, on the other hand, you gave Chupacabra an extra point of toughness and 4 extra points of power and trample. Yeah, it's playable. That's a playable card, dude. That's good. But next is Fire Nation Engineer. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 2/3 human artificer with raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature or vehicle you control. So Luminarch Aspirant for 50% more that waits until the end of the turn. It's bad. It's just, it's altogether is not very good. I think, again, though, in limited, this is better than it looks. You know, an extra point of PT every turn, if you can manage to attack, is good. And the more PT you get over your opponent with this, I think the more likely you are to just be able to attack. So, not too bad. But in standard, 2.5. It's not good. Fire Navy Trebuchet. 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 0/4 artifact wall with defender and reach. Whenever you attack, create a 2/1 colorless construct artifact creature token with flying named Ballistic Boulder that's tapped and attacking. Sack it at the beginning of the next end step. So, like I've said, not Urbrass Forge, but at least you get a 2-power flyer every turn. It's like a Windrake, right? It's a 3 mana, 2-power flyer that also gives you a blocker, like a pretty solid blocker. Also works with impact trimmers and war leaders call effects and stuff, but just not standard strong. I'm sorry. I'm going to give this card a 3.7 though. I think I like creature factories. Foggy Swamp Hunters is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 3/4 human ranger ally. As long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, this guy has lifelink and menace. Limited 23rd card, give it a 2.4. Foggy Swamp Visions is 3 mana, 1 and 2 black for a sorcery. At an additional cost to cast it, Waterbend X. Exile X target creatures from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, create a token that is a copy of it. At the beginning of your next end step, sack those tokens. So, to get anything out of this, you have to Waterbend. Now, I don't think this is as good as like Squirming Emergence, but this can get back a bunch of stuff, and all you have to have is tokens, 4 little artifacts, or an extra mana or 2 laying around. You don't want this to cost more than 3, I think. You want to play smaller creatures, and then at some point in the game, maybe those small creatures mill stuff when they come into play, right? Maybe that's what you do. You play like Town Greeter, which mills 4 when it comes into play for 2 mana. And creatures like it, maybe 1 mana mill guys. And then on turn 3, you can tap those guys down, and you actually have stuff to reanimate. You only get the things for 1 turn, and notably, they don't gain haste. I don't know if you've noticed that, but this card does not, as usual, usually a card like this will give them haste. This doesn't. So you're really looking for ETB triggers or a way to engineer haste apart from that. So there's kind of a deck building puzzle to be solved here, but it's a really interesting one. That said, I'm just not convinced this is going to be powerful enough even if you solve the puzzle. You know what I mean? I'm just not sure. So I think I'm going to give this a 5.4. I'm going to respect its gangster like a little bit because there's probably some kind of combo-ish pile that this goes in. But for right now, I don't think it has a home yet. Art's cool, by the way. Heartless Act is reprinted, another reprinted removal spell. This one better. This was the best removal spell in its standard environment the last time it was around. 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant. Choose 1, destroy a creature with no counters on it. Or remove up to 3 counters from target creature. Always good. 5.7. Just a solid removal. Actually, I'll give it a 6. Heartless Act is good enough to be a 6. Very good. Hog Monkey. Hog Monkey is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/2 boar monkey. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it gains menace until end of turn. You can also exhaust 5 mana to put 2 +1/+1 counters on this guy. Pretty not great, I guess. I guess in your +1/+1 counter deck it does something, but not good enough. Not good enough. I'm going to throw a 2.1 at this. I just don't think it's very good. Judy, one of many. It's good that you can't see this. My head is covering this up, but look at this. Look at his face. Looks freaky face. Jeez, man. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 human advisor. Pay black, tap, surveil 1. Create a token that's a copy of this creature, and then sacrifice an artifact or creature. Activate its sorcery speed. So, one thing I like about this is that it makes the token first, and then you sacrifice a creature. You can sacrifice the token if you want to. Or you just make more and more and more and more of this and tap them down, turn over turn, have more sacrifice outlets, and surveil a bunch of cards. So maybe that's good enough, but I kind of don't think so. I'm going to give this a 4.8. You know, Children of the Magic Corn. Yeah, it's a freakish looking magic card. I'll say that much. June, the Bounty Hunters. 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 legendary human mercenary that cannot be blocked as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. Pay 1, sack another creature, create a clue token, activate only during your turn. Not sorcery speed, during your turn. So if you have like firebending or something, you can do it during your combat stuff. That's cute. But altogether, I think this card looks better than it is. I think it's pretty easy to draw 2 cards in a turn, but it's harder to do as the game goes on. And its sack ability is, first of all, pseudo sorcery speed. Not quite, but pseudo sorcery speed and costs mana. And the last 2 things we've seen that are sack outlets cost mana, and I really don't like that. So I'm just going to give June like a 4. I don't think this is as good as it looks. I really don't. But oh my God, Scornful Striker is pretty good. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 legendary human noble ally with first strike. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, they lose 2 life. What? So, kind of a take on Thalia, 2 mana, 2 power, first striker that nerfs non-creature spells in a way. This one, people can still cast them for the normal rate, right? But they're just going to take some damage. That's great. That's so great. It's kind of like you're forcing, it's like a gutter snipe for your opponent's non-creature spells, right? So think of it that way. That's pretty good. This is one of the bangerest cards in the entire set. Seriously. I'm finding a spot for that in my Hate Bears deck. Yeah, Hate Bear, pretty good. Do somebody just say colorless mana doesn't work with firebending? Yeah, it does. If you firebend for a red mana, you can pay this cost. Absolutely, you can pay this cost. You can't pay a colorless mana with firebending, but you can pay a generic, sure. Why not? But yeah, Scornful Striker. Is this one of the best cards in the set? I really think this might be one of the best cards in the set. Yeah, good anti-VV tech. Somebody in chat said Lido Jr. with the good takes tonight. Yeah, fun anti-Vivi tech. They have to take this out, or they're just going to die. Cast like 3 spells in a turn. It's going to hurt, buddy. There's no once per turn thing. You know what I mean? We already have cards that impact draws, right? Yeah. We have cards that can force draws on them and stuff. That's cute. Whenever they cast a non-creature, they lose 2 life. Now, it works for us, too. It's symmetrical. But I honestly think that you can still have removal spells in your deck and play this card, and it's fine. Especially in Cecil. Cecil's your 1-drop. You're trying to go down to 10 life anyway. Play you'll be fine playing non-creatures. But if you just go Cecil on 1, Mai on 2, Preacher the Schism on 3, or like Carsey Revenant or something, like you're in the money, dude. You're doing great. So I think this card is playable back to Legacy, like especially playable in Legacy, to be honest. You know what I mean? But, even you go all the way up to Standard. This sees play. This sees play in just about every format. Seriously. I think it's also an annoying commander for what it's worth. You can totally play this as your commander. Everyone will hate you so much. But I want to try it. I really do. Because all my spells are Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat, Marionette Apprentice. I can do this all day. There's a million Marionette Master. There's a million of these little dudes that I can play in my deck, and I will. So Bloodseeker is a good one. Anyway, fun commander, but in literally every constructed environment, I think this is a playable Magic card. I'm going to give this an 8.5. I'm going to give this an 8.5. Dark Ritual Thoughtseize this. What a turn 1. Oh my God. That's pretty nasty. But yeah, I think this is top tier for the set. Merchant of Many Hats, though, is not quite as good. 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 human peasant ally. Pay 2 and a black to return this card from your yard to your hand. So, you know, kind of a skeleton effect. We've seen a sanitarium skeleton, reassembling skeleton, stuff like that. Nowhere near as good as reassembling skeleton, which comes right back into play for less mana. But this is a 2/2 where like all those guys are 1/1, so whatever. It's a take. And for best of my knowledge, we haven't seen an ally that does this, but I don't think it's worth too much in the long run. We'll just give it like a 3. I'll give it a 3.5. I think it's pretty normal. Northern Air Temple might be the other good shrine in the set. A single black mana for a legendary shrine enchantment. When it enters, each opponent loses X life. You gain X life, X being the number of shrines you control. Whenever another shrine you control enters, each opponent loses 1, you gain 1 life. Bingo bango. This is either the best or the worst shrine, right? Because I don't know how often this is actually going to add up to killing your opponent. That's what you want to do with it, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah. I pointed this out the other day. Creatures you control have ward 2 life. Yeah, that's what Mai is, basically. You know, she even has ward pay 2 life, which is probably how it's going to go down half the time. But yeah, this, I don't know if it's going to add up to enough damage to like really win a game, but it might add up to enough life to keep you in the game. And again, with pixie effects, you know, like it's not Hopeless Nightmare, but there's a chance. Like, this is okay with like pixie and the rest of the stuff like it. So I like this, but I'm a little bit wary of it at the end of the day. However, it's just 1 mana. I'll take a 1 mana effect like this. It's a black burn spell. I like this. So I'm just going to give this, say, a 4 and keep it pushing. Mostly again because it's a shrine. Obsessive Pursuit is 2 mana, 1 and a black for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters and at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life and get a clue token. Whenever you attack, put X +1/+1 counters on an attacking creature, where X is the number of permanents you've sacked this turn. If X is 3 or greater, that creature gains lifelink until end of turn. I've seen a lot of people compare this to Prof's Eidetic Memory, but like the black version of it. And I will say, as far as color pie goes, this probably is the black version of Prof's, but not anywhere near as good as Prof. Prof's just want you to draw cards, which is like literally the best thing you can do in a game of Magic in the first place. You want to draw cards, you know. Whereas this, on the other hand, wants you to come down on board presence, which is not as good as drawing cards, typically. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm a little bit wary of it. But in Commander, I think this is probably playable in Aristocrats piles. They're sacking 2-3 things in a turn before they attack anyway. That said, I've played a lot of games in Commander with LSO Core and whatnot, and it turns out you usually just kind of sit there and play like 2 things a turn until you get your big turn. So there's a lot of turns coming up to turn 5 and 6 where you don't even sacrifice anything ever, right? Until like the big turn. So this isn't as good, maybe even as it looks in Commander Aristocrats. In Standard Aristocrats, I think it's just like bad, you know? It does give you a clue every turn, and that's a drawn card, but it's still not like Phyrexian Arena, which we have in Standard anyway, you know? You have to attack for the counters and like Prof, not like Prof. Yeah, maybe that's true. Non-bow with Mobilize, shaking my head. I want to like this really badly. I really do. But ultimately, especially in like competitive 1v1s, you're skipping your turn 2 for this. Nah, probably not. I'm going to pop up 4.5 on this and hope that it's way better. Like way better. I may need to teach you how to play Ellis better. Those are almost fighting words, my actual real life cousin Jason. Ozai's Cruelty is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a sorcery speed lesson that deals 2 damage to target player, and that player discards 2 cards. A Mind Rot with a black burn spell attached. I might just play that. I might just play that magic card on stream, like coming real soon here. But like seriously, the first night of stream might be like Moreland, Cat Gator, this, a couple of other black burn cards. I really like it. I love black burn. This card is not good, however. But hey, it's Mind Rot, so 3.5. Mind Rot is a 3.5. Are there free sack outlets in Standard? Yeah, Umbral Zealot and Bartolome del Presidio are both good free sack outlets. Oh, Phoenix Fleet Airship. This might be my sleeper of the set here. This is 4 mana, 2 and double black for a 4/4 vehicle with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacked a permanent this turn, create a token that's a copy of this vehicle. As long as you control 8 or more permanents named Phoenix Fleet Airship, this vehicle is an artifact creature, and it has crew 1. So crew 1 is like the lowest imaginable, you know, realistic crew cost. So that's pretty good. What I like about this is that it's pretty easy to proc. Just sack a permanent. So you sack any permanent, whether you've sacked it to an Umbral Color Zealot or you sacked a clue because you popped it, whatever. You get a copy of your 4/4 flyer. That's easy to crew. I think once you get the first copy of this, you're starting to roll. Like you're starting to roll. 2 4/4 flyers is a lot right there. However, if you get to your next turn and you sack a thing, you don't even have to attack with these guys. They can just sit there and hang out. If you sack anything on the next turn, there's 2 of them in play now. So now you get 2 more. You now have 4 potential 4/4 flyers. The next turn, if you sack something, you have 8. So they're all creatures. Like if they all stayed in play, they're all creatures. If they don't stay in play, your opponent kind of has to sweep. And this doesn't die to sweeps. You see, because it's not yet an artifact creature. So your opponent can sweep the table or whatever. Doesn't really matter. Basically, this will eventually be able to attack just because it can. But in the meantime, it's easy to make these attack, and once you have 4 of them in play, you're going to win the game with your 4/4 flyers. I really think that this is kind of very good. I look at the other 4-drop black creatures in Standard, and the one that stands out most is Elegy Acolyte, a creature I love. I think Elegy Acolyte is insane. I also kind of like Enduring Tenacity, the black, enduring card. It's fine. Bloodletter of Akhlazotz is a pretty decent 4. But I think this might subtly, if we try it out, end up being an insane Magic card. We'll see. We'll see at the end of the day. But I'm going to go out on a limb with this one. This is probably going to be the wildest score that I give a card tonight. But I got a feeling about this one. And I'm going to go all the way to a 7.5 on this bad boy. I might be wrong, and I probably am. But this one calls to me. And I think it's a lot better than it initially reads. I really, really do. I think this is pretty good. But we'll look at Raven Eagle next. This is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 2/3 bird assassin with flying. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature card is exiled this way, you get a clue token. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, which is the part I popped for. But again, it's just 1 life at a time, a drain at a time. You're probably not going to win the game with this guy, but the enters trigger is pretty good. 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer. That's better than a Windrake. 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer that more or less guarantees a clue token most of the time. That's not bad. You also get it on attacks, though. And getting it on attacks, getting to mess around in graveyards, I think the card is okay, but probably not super standard playable. I think we have better 3s for the most part. But, against the right deck and in the right standard where you're getting turn over turn clue value off of this and it actually matters, yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm ready to give this card a 5, but I won't go any more. I won't go any higher. The Rise of Sozin is 6 mana. This is 4 and double black for a Saga. Destroy all creatures on Chapter 1. All right. On Chapter 2, choose a card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with the name and exile them. Then that player shuffles. On Chapter 3, exile it, return it to the battlefield as Fire Lord Sozin. This is a 5/4 legendary human noble with menace and firebending 3. Whenever Fire Lord Sozin deals combat damage to a player, you may pay X. When you do, put any number of target creature cards, total mana value X or less, from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this is crazy. You flip it over, and the turn you actually get to attack with it the first time, you'll have all of your mana untapped and firebending 3. So considering that it wiped all the creatures when it came into play, you should have a couple of guys to get out of your opponent's graveyard. At 6 mana, I think I'd rather play this than Primal Odin. Now, Por Que No Los Dos for sure, but I guess the reason you wouldn't play 2 is because you can't play too many 6s in your deck. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go this over Primal Odin. Now, Primal Odin doesn't see any play, so it's kind of non sequitur, right? But I still think this is a pretty powerful looking Magic card. A sweeper that becomes a 5/5 firebending 3, I think is just kind of good on its face, So does he upload the speedrun to YouTube? Yes. So don't worry if you have to go soon. But yeah, reanimate small guys. You also get to, exile something forever, their game plan. That's good. So yeah, I think this is actually a solid piece of value right here, and I'm going to give it a 6. I am. Costs a lot of mana. I'm still going to give it that 6. Ruinous Waterbending is a fine sweep. 3 mana, 1 and double black for a sorcery speed lesson. Has additional cost to cast it. Waterbend 4 if you want to. All creatures get -2/-2 till end of turn if the spell's additional cost was paid. Whenever a creature dies this turn, gain 1 life. So pretty decent anti aggro tech here. If you can just gain 2-3 life off of this, you're doing a great job. So as a sideboard sweeper card for black decks, I am bald. Look at that. As a sideboard sweeper card for black decks, I'm going to give this like a 5.3. This is very sideboard playable. Sold Out is 4 mana, 3 and a black for an instant. Exile a creature. If it was dealt damage this turn, you get a clue token. Good way. Good way to use this black ability that always gets used but is never that exciting. Exile's also good, but I don't think you're playing this in standard anytime soon. That said, I'll still give it a 3.6. I think it's a more than serviceable removal spell. Swamp Snare Trap is 3 mana, 2 and a black for an aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets -5/-3, and this thing costs 1 less to cast if it targets a creature with flying. So there are some relevant flying creatures in standard this can kill, but you use something else. You use a better card to kill those same creatures. So I can't give this a great score outside of limited, but it is good in limited. Maybe a 3.5, Tundra Tank is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 4/4 vehicle with Firebending 1 and Crew 1. When this vehicle enters, a creature you control gains indestructible till end of turn. This is a pretty massive, jerk in draft, If you can somehow flash it in, there are ways of doing that, then it's pretty good in that capacity. But I think a 3 mana 4/4 easy to crew with Firebending, that's all pretty decent draft, so keep an eye out for it. But in standard, it's nothing. I'll give it a 3. Wolf Bat is 3 mana. Wolf Bats for 2 and a black. You get a 2/2 Wolf Bat with flying. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you can pay a black mana. If you do, return this guy from your yard to the battlefield with a finality counter. Womp womp on the finality counter on this. It's not great. Isn't a Trap and Pauper? What card? What card? Sold Out? Is it Sold Out we're talking about? Anyway. Yeah, Wolfbat is just fine. It's a limited playable Windrake, so we'll give this a 2.9. Borcupine. I actually think it's kind of nice in budget commander, but 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/2 Boar Porcupine. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. Simple and clean like the opening to Kingdom Hearts. I think it's a fine guy. I will just give it a 3.7 though. Nothing too special. Boomy Bash is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a sorcery. Choose 1. Bash deals damage equal to the number of lands you control to target creature, or destroy target creature or non-basic land. Target land creature or non-basic land. Kind of a Demolish variant, one of the 4 mana Stone Rain variants. And it's not terrible in limited mostly, but at sorcery speed, I would never play this in standard. So I will just give this a 2.8. The Cave of Two Lovers is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a enchantment. It's a saga. Chapter 1, you get 2/1/1 white ally guys. On Chapter 2, search your library for a mountain or cave, reveal it, it goes into your hand, shuffle up. On Chapter 3, Earthbend 3. Pretty interesting value. It reminds me of the red Chocobo card from Final Fantasy. It makes the Chocobo on Chapter, not on Chapter 1. It's like a sorcery or an instant. But yeah, it makes a guy and you go get a mountain. And again, this kind of reminds me of that. Same mana value. But altogether, not too impressive. Even with all this value, this is good value. It really is. Still not that impressive. I will give this a 3.8, somewhere in that realm. Combustion Man is 5 mana, 3 and double red for a 4/6 legendary human assassin. Whenever he attacks, destroy target permanent unless its controller has Combustion Man deal damage to them equal to his power. Cool design here. I like that a bit, but altogether, it's going to be kind of tough to enable this. And 5 mana is just right out in standard, so I'll give this guy like a 3. Combustion Technique is 2 mana, 1 and a red for an instant speed lesson that deals 2 damage, plus, it deals damage equal to 2 plus the number of lesson cards in your yard to a creature. If the creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Pretty playable in lessons. We doing blue-red lessons? Is that what we're doing? Maybe. Pretty playable in the lessons deck for sure as a removal spell. I can sometimes take out stuff larger than most red removal spells can. Like once you get 4 lessons in your yard, you're taking out 6 power or 6 toughness guys. So I don't know, probably playable in standard. I will give this a 4.9. Crescent Island Temple is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a legendary shrine enchantment. When it enters, for each shrine you control, you get a 1/1 red monk with prowess. Whenever another shrine you control enters, you get that same monk. So pretty good. A little expensive, but maybe you'll have 3 total, shrines in play when you play it. And 3 monks is pretty good for 4 mana. paying you more monks as the game goes on is pretty good as well. So this is kind of like second or third best shrine in my mind in a lot of ways. So I'm going to give this a 4.2. Cunning Maneuver is 2 mana, 1 on a red for an instant. Creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn, and you create a clue token. That's actually not terrible. It's really not a bad combat trick, and a clue token's fine too. So, man, is this actually better than it looks? Is it? I'm gonna give this card a 4. I'm serious. For like mice decks and other aggro decks that want this. You know, you're kind of getting a combat trick without actually spending a card from your hand. Technically, you know, that's pretty good. But Deserter's Disciple is 2 mana, 1 on a red for a 2/2 human rebel ally. Tap it. Another creature you control with power 2 or less cannot be blocked this turn. That's adorable, but you know, I'll give this like a 2.8. Fated Firepower is triple red and X for an enchantment with flash. This enchantment enters with X fire counters on it. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus an amount of damage equal to the number of fire counters on this enchantment instead. So, if I pay 6 mana in total for this, then whenever anything would deal damage to anything else, it deals that much damage plus 3. So that's good. Even if it's just, 4 mana I pay for this, then now everything I have does an extra 1 damage, not just to my opponent, but to stuff they control. That's kind of a big deal. Turn all your lightning strikes into, obliterating bolts, kind of. Turn all your burst lightnings that are dry into lightning bolts. That's pretty good. This has flash, though. Do you see how this has flash? Like, you can flash this in on blocks or something, and then suddenly you're dealing 1 billion damage. So many. You have wizard pings and stuff like that. Goes really well in your Black Waltz #3 deck. Goes well in your any deck with gutter snipe, something like that. Your spellslinger deck. It's crazy. But good in your aggro decks too. Don't know that it's standard playable though. It is scalable, but by the time you end up playing this, you're probably somewhat out of cards in your hand, right? So how good is it in subsequent turns? I do like the flash though. I do like the flash. You can kind of play a counterburn or something like that. And then on a later turn, flash this in at the end of your opponent's turn when you didn't use a counter spell or removal spell that turn. And suddenly, you flash it in for 5, 6, 7 mana, and now you can just finish them off with lightning helixes and stuff. You're just going to town. So yeah, and this somebody's pointed this lava being does not specify red sources. Usually, it would specify red sources. It does not. So that's kind of a big deal. Now it's triple red, so it expects you're pretty heavy committed to red. But as somebody else in chat has pointed out, flash, so it works with firebending very well. That's a good pickup right there. Play it during your own combat step with some of your firebending mana. So there's a lot to do with this, and it's a few things that make it potentially standard playable at a lower cost. So, and yeah, play it for X = 0. That's hilarious. But even at X = 1, it's kind of fine. It really is just kind of fine. Don't know if it finds a home, but one of the better commander cards in the entire set. Sure. But even for standard, I'm going to go ahead and slap a 5.7 on this, which isn't the most confident score in the world, but this could be a great card. It really could be. Fire Nation Attacks. By the way, we have impact trimmers in standard. Just throwing that out there. We have a bunch of stuff that does 1 damage at a time to opponents, and this would be good with that. But next is Fire Nation Attacks. 5 mana. It's the meme. 5 mana, 4 and a red for an instant. You get 2 2/2 red soldier creature tokens with Firebending 1. You can flash this back for 9 mana. But it is instant speed. So at least it's got that going for it. You're supposed to firebending and then flash it back during your combat step. But either way, it's not very impressive, is it? I'm just going to give this a 2.7. I think it's way overcosted either way. Do I think it's better than City on Fire? Yes. I think this card is better than City on Fire. Fire Nation Cadets is a single red mana for a 1/2 human soldier with Firebending 2 as long as there's a lesson card in your yard. You can pay 2 and give it +1/+0 until end of turn. So again, somebody earlier said you can't firebend with colorless mana. This card again illustrates that you absolutely can do that. Otherwise, what would be the point, But in any case, I think there's something to this without actually being very good. So I'm just going to put a 3.3 on it and move on. But it is worth noting, this is a 1-drop that can pay you back double, it can generate positive mana value starting the second turn it's in play. And potentially that's very good. So, but I don't think it actually is in practicality. In reality, I don't think it's that good. Fire Nation Raider is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 4/2 human soldier with raid. When this creature enters, if you attack this turn, you get a clue token. Totally normal guy. Absolutely normal guy. Yeah, red mana door, like a red Llanowar Elves. Yeah, kind of. A little bit. That's a way to look at it. If it's a red Llanowar Elves, it's like a 7, you know? But I just don't think we're there with it. Fire Nation Raider is too normal. I'm going to give this a 2.2. Fire Sages is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/2 human cleric with firebending 1. Pay 1 and double red to put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, which is a pretty decent mana sink, but again, relatively normal guy. Super normal dude. So I'm going to give this like a 2.5. Firebender Ascension is cool looking. This is 2 mana, 1 and a red for an enchantment. When it enters, you get a 2/2 red soldier creature token with firebending 1. Okay. Whenever a creature you control attacking causes a triggered ability of that creature to trigger, put a plus quest counter on this enchantment. And then if it has 4 or more quest counters on it, you may copy that ability and choose new targets. For the copy, so put it in Ishin. Commander, I guess. Ishin 2 Heavens is 1. That's not bad. But in Standard, again, I think this is slightly slow, but at least it pays you a creature. It immediately pays you a creature when it comes into play, and it's not an embarrassing rate for the creature it's giving you. So I guess that's fine. No Corey Still Cutter, but I guess it's fine. Altogether, though, I do think it'll take a minute in Standard to get up and running, and even then, once it does get up and running, there might be situations where it doesn't actually do too much, so I don't know. I'm going to give this a 5.1 to respect it, but to be honest, if I had my druthers, I'd give this like a 3. I don't think this is that good in Standard, but we'll have to wait and see. Firebending Student is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 1/2 human monk with prowess, Firebending X, where X is this creature's power. This is a rare. I don't like it. Don't fuzz nuts, take it easy. I think it's cute. This is another red mana dork, right? Makes mana when it attacks. And it does have prowess. So if you cast 1, we saw that spell earlier. That gives it +3/+1. Let's say Monstrous Rage. I know it's not in Standard anymore, but just as an example, we'll say Monstrous Rage. That'd be 1 mana for an extra 4 power on this. It swings for 5 and you firebend 5. That would be really good, right? That'd be super good. So if you play, that card we looked at earlier that gives +3/+1 and a clue token, then you're firebending 5. And that's pretty gross. Hard Claw triggers, Firebender Ascension. That's a good point. Hard Claw triggers pretty good. But Firebending Student, I'm just going to throw... I'm going to put a 4.8 on this and hope that I'm wrong. But I think if you're going to play a 2 mana prowess guy, there's Emberheart Challenger, there's Pseudo Prowess on Slickshot Show Off, and those are just more aggressive creatures than this. So we'll see, but I don't think this is amazing. Next is How to Start a Riot. That's a good song. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for an instant speed lesson. A creature gains menace until end of turn, and creatures a player controls get +2/+0 till end of turn, so it is a burn bright. This is, I'm obligated to like burn brights. I've always liked those, but I can't rate it highly. I really can't. I will give this a 3, though. Burn bright effects are better than they seem. Hero's Demonstration is a good magic card. 2 mana, 1 and a red for a sorcery speed lesson. Choose 1. Demonstration deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Hero's Demonstration deals 4 damage to target creature. I don't think the sorcery speed kills this. I really don't. I love that this says your opponents control. Your opponents control. Not your guys. You keep all your X1s. They don't. That's potentially very good. So don't discount that mode. There's a lot of X1s, Deep Cavern Bat and Flood Pits Drowner, to name a couple. Plus, Burnout Bastronaut and a bunch of other X1s in mono red. So, there are things that this kills in batches. But obviously just 4 damage to a creature is enough most of the time for 2 mana to want to play that card. So I think it's actually a really solid removal spell. And I will give it a 5. Right out of 5. Zhong the Deserter is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/3 legendary human rebel ally with firebending 1. Exhaust 3. Put a +1/+1 counter on JJ. When you next cast a lesson spell this turn, copy it. Choose new targets for the copy. So you're only doing this 1 time, right? That's it, because it's an exhaust ability. Altogether, I think this is fairly weak. I'm going to give it a 2.4. Jet's Brainwashing is a cool threatened effect. A single red mana for a sorcery with kicker 3. A creature cannot block this turn. If this spell was kicked, gain control of that creature till EOT, untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. And you get a clue token. So keep in mind that for 1 red mana, you get the clue token no matter what. And a creature can't block, which is fine. Not bad. Creature can't block this turn for 1 mana is often okay. It really is. But you get a clue token as well, which means, again, you didn't spend this card out of your hand. Technically, you didn't spend this card from your hand. You can replace it with a different one. And if you'd rather have a threaten effect for 4 mana, just do that. Just do that instead. That's fine too, you know? So I think this is actually, as far as threaten effects go, this is a pretty sideboardable one. They pop up in sideboards from time to time. So I'm going to give this a 4.5. I'm serious. I think this is a playable threaten effect. And doesn't even have to be a threaten effect. The last Agni Kai is 2 mana, 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature you control fights a creature an opponent controls. If the creature the opponent controls is dealt excess damage this way, add that much red. Until end of turn, you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. So, we get a ritual effect. That's what this is meant to be. A Rite of Flame, a Seething Song, or whatever. But we have to go through hoops. However, it's also a removal spell stapled to a ritual effect. And that's good. Yeah, did somebody point out this is an instant up here? That's a sorcery. Yeah, it's a threaten effect, so it should be a sorcery. But yeah, this ritual effect down here, I think is actually a pretty dangerous card. Ritual effects tend to be dangerous cards. A lot of hoops you got to jump through, but in the meantime, you get a removal spell as well. That's so good. Yeah, as if Vivi wasn't enough of a problem. Woohoo, that's a point. That's a hell of a point. Yeah, can't wait for Screaming Nemesis to fight something. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know if this goes in decks with Nemesis, though. That's the thing. Is like, if it's big red with Screaming Nemesis, it's kind of a bridgy 3-drop, then yeah, sure. But in mono red aggro with Screaming Nemesis is close to the top end of your curve. No, I don't think you played this. I don't. That said, ritual effects are always good. Always. So this could be a massive bust. It really could be. Or it could be a fantastic, like phenomenal card. I think it sees a lot of play in Commander for what that's worth. That's not what we're really talking about tonight. In Standard, I will still give this a 6, but that's a fairly tempered expectation, all things considered. It really is. I want to give this card a 7.5, 8, but I, with good conscience, cannot do that. The Legend of Roku. The Roku Television. This is 4 mana, 2 and double red for an enchantment. It's a saga. Chapter 1, exile the top 3 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play them cards. Chapter 2, add a mana of any color. Ooh, Chapter 3, exile it. Return to transformed. It becomes Avatar Roku. This is a 4/4 legendary avatar with firebending 4. You can pay 8 mana and create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying and firebending 4. So, the first time, this ability effectively only costs 4 mana, right? Because you attack with Avatar Roku, you make your 4 red mana, you pay 4 extra mana on top of that, you get a 4/4. The cool thing about that is if you can pull it off, the next turn, well, you have firebending 8 mana. So you just get this ability for free. Which I think, if you can do it, it's good. And this guy probably snowballs unlimited like crazy. You know? But the front half isn't terrible either. The way I see this, you get Harmonize, right? You get an enchantment that also casts Harmonize for 4 mana. You get 3 cards. 3 looks. Works with anything that wants you to impulse draw and cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. That's cool. A mana of any color on the next turn, very good. I really do think that 1 mana, just 1 free mana, that's ramp, kid, and that's not bad. So I can't hate this card for the life of me. For the life of me, I just can't hate this card. I will give this a 5.3 though. Again, tempered expectations, but above the baseline. Lightning Strike. What do you give a card like Lightning Strike? Let's give Lightning Strike a 6. It's about right. My Jaded Edge is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 1/3 legendary human noble with prowess. Exhaust 3 to put a double strike counter on my. That's pretty okay. That's all right, man. I don't think that it's going to end the world anytime soon, but I do think it's a lot better than it looks. So much better than it looks. If you put the double strike counter on my, and you ever swing in with open mana and cards in your hand, your opponent must block this. If you have open mana and like 2 cards in your hand, they could legit lose the game if they don't block this card. So yeah, prowess double strike, popcorn emoji. Absolutely. 2 extremely dangerous abilities to put together. If you even get like a +2/+0 or something, combat trick for 1 mana, and you get the prowess 2, well, that's 8 damage coming their way potentially. So again, your opponent just has to, they must block this card if they see it coming at them. So I think there's more to it than there appears to be. But still, I'm just going to give it a 4.75, you know? I don't think that it sees too much play, but there's something to it. Mongoose Lizard is 6 mana, 4 and double red for a 5/6 mongoose lizard. It has menace, and when it enters, it deals 1 damage to any target. It has mountain cycling too, so it's not Nova Hellkite. It wants to be Nova Hellkite so bad, but it's ain't. I'm going to give this a 2.6. Price of Freedom is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a sorcery speed lesson. Destroy an artifact or land an opponent controls. Its controller may search their library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, shuffle up, and it draws you a card. So just like Cleansing Nova, if they don't have basic lands in their deck, this is a Stone Rain with a discount that draws a card. Pretty good. Unlike Cleansing Wildfire, though, the Pauper deck, I mean, you can't play it in Pauper because they smartly made it an uncommon, but Cleansing Wildfire and Pauper can target your own indestructible lands. You don't lose your land. You ramp one for 2 mana like a Rampant Growth, and you draw a card. One of the most fun plays in Pauper. You can't do it with this card. So they kind of fixed it. This is what they wanted the card to do all along, right? So I can't say that Wildfire is a good card in this context. It's still fun, and it's a lesson, So I like it, but again, in good conscience, I'm not going to give this more than a 4.5. I don't think this is super playable. Next is Ran and Shaw. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 red for a 4/4 legendary dragon with flying and firebending 2. When Ran and Shaw enter, if you cast them and there are 3 or more dragon and or lesson cards in your yard, create a token that's a copy of Ran and Shaw, except it's not legendary. It has 4 mana, so 3 and a red. Dragons you control get +2/+0 till end of turn. I don't think this goes in 5C dragons and Commander. I don't. And as far as standard goes, if it had haste, we might be talking. But you're probably not going to have the requisite number of dragon and or lesson cards. If you do have the lesson cards in your yard, it becomes good, but not draw 3 cards for 2 mana good. You know what I mean? It's just like put 2 guys on the table. All right. It's not as good as it looks, I think. So I don't know. I want to be excited about this, but I think there's much better ways to spend 5 mana on a creature in standard. I really do. So I'm just going to give Ran and Shaw a 4.9. I don't even know if this is a 5 quite yet. Oh, I got to catch the rest of the 2. My actual real-life cousin Jason. I'll see you later. Redirect Lightning is a single red mana for an instant speed lesson. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 5 life or pay 2 mana. Change the target of target's spell or ability with a single of targets, so a Bolt Bend that only costs potentially 1 mana. Probably Commander playable. It's not deflecting SWAT, right? But it's actually like kind of close to deflecting SWAT. Like I'll pay 5 mana to not lose the game, right? Not lose my best guy or whatever. You know, I think this is actually a great card there. In standard, 5 life is a little bit too steep, right? But hey, you know, might be useful from time to time. I will just give this a 4, a tentative 4 too. I don't think this is a standard playable card, but if we were rating for Commander, I might give it like an 8. It's just Bolt Bend in that format, and that's a pretty good card. Rough Rhino Cavalry is 5 mana, 4 into red for a 5/5 human mercenary with firebending 2. Exhaust for 8 mana to put 2 +1/+1 counters on the sky and have it gain trample until end of turn. Pretty bad. Even with firebending, I still think it's kind of bad. So I'm just going to give this a 2.2. I really think it's terrible. But hey, it's 5 mana for a 5/5. Could be worse. You know, could be worse. Next is Solstice Revelations. I like this thing. 3 mana, 2 in a red for an instant speed lesson. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost if the spell's mana value is less than, not less than or equal to, less than the number of mountains you control. If you don't cast the card this way, put it into your hand. It has flashback for 6 and a red. So the floor on this is draw a card. Draw a non-land, by the way. Draw a business. The floor on this is draw a business. You know? But if you have enough mountains in play, then suddenly this is just put a good thing. If you have 5 mountains in play, I get a 4-drop, which is added mana value. You know, if I have 7 mountains in play, I can basically get most good cards in standard, and again gain mana value, generate mana off of this, and then you flash it back. And once you flash it back, presuming again that I have 7 mountains, I will get something off of this and cast it for free. So yeah, I think this is a solid card, man. I don't know where it goes, where you play it, or if it's worth the opportunity cost of including it in your Magic the Gathering deck, but I still think it's altogether like a decent card. I'm going to give it a 5.7. I think it's all right. Yeah, it's just instant. You can play it with firebending and stuff. It's pretty good. Sozin's Comet is a mythic for some reason. It is 5 mana, 3 and double red for a sorcery. Each creature you control gains firebending a 5 until end of turn. And you can foretell this for 2 into red. So Foretelling this makes it incredible, probably. But you have to find a way to use the mana. Using the mana is easier said than done, ladies and gentlemen. But that said, this could be the best potential. When I say best, I mean the highest mana value generating ritual in red of all time. You know? Pretty good. You can use that enchantment with the XRRR. Yeah, you could. The thing we saw that increases the damage that sources you control do to stuff. Yeah, that'd be a way to get it going. But if you have 2 guys in play and you foretold this, you can gain 10 mana. 10 mana on 2 guys attacking. It's pretty good. However, this feels like a trap. This feels like a commander card. You know? More than anything else. This feels like a commander card. In standard, maybe you can find a way to use all this mana. I just can't really come up with anything off the top of my head that like works the way you want it to. That's powerful, you know. So I'm not seeing it in competitive environments. I really am not. In Commander, there's a nasty magic card. It's so good. I think it's okay with the lizards and slick shot. It's a slot in your deck, you know? Like if you put this in your like aggro deck with the lizards and slick shot and stuff, it's a card that isn't a burn spell. It's a card that isn't a pump spell. It's a card that isn't Emberheart Challenger. It's a card that isn't Manifold Mouse or whatever, you know? So I don't know, man. I really don't. And like once you do go like, okay, I've got my lizard and my slick shot and like one other, like a screaming nemesis. Play Sozin's Comet. Get in 15 mana. What are you doing with it? You know, like what are you actually doing with that mana? So I'm wary of this. Again, in Commander, I'd give this like an 8.5. I think it's very powerful there. Like super duper powerful. But in Standard, I'm going to give this another tentative 4.1. I'll respect how much mana this potentially generates, but it's not flawless. You have to jump through hoops. Your opponent might kill some of your creatures before you can attack with them. I don't know, man. I want to believe, but I don't, you know? Tigerdillo is 1 and a red for a 4/3 cat. Armadillo, cat cube. This creature can't attack or block unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater, which should be easy enough, but honestly, it's not that exciting. I think we have better 2-drops we can play most of the time than this. So I'm going to slap a 3.3 on this guy. Something like that. But next is Treetop Freedom Fighters. 3 mana for a 2/1 human rebel ally with haste. You get a 1/1 ally token when it comes into play. Again, fine limited card, terrible everywhere else. Just really not good. So I'll give you a 2.4. Twin Blades is better than it looks, man. 3 mana, 2 and a red for an equipment with flash that equips for 2, but when it enters, you get to attach it to a creature you control. That creature gains double strike to EOT, and they also get +1/+1. So if the creature you're throwing this on naturally has trample, you're in the money, son. You really are. This isn't Embercleave, but it's about as close to a bootleg Embercleave as we're going to get in Standard right now. I think it's way more dangerous than it looks. The creature only gets double strike for the turn, not only till EOT, but I still think that's going to be enough to just win some games out of nowhere. You know, your opponent leaves the Emberheart Challenger blocked. Okay, well, you know, let's cast this and equip the Emberheart Challenger. And look at that. That's Valiant. That's a Valiant trigger right there. It's also a non-creature trigger, you know, so let's go. Just altogether, you can do some serious damage out of nowhere with the Twin Blades. So I am going to put a too high score on this and say that it's a 6. I'm serious. I think this is a 6. I'm not taking that back, dude. Tylee Artful Acrobat is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/2 legendary human performer with prowess. When it attacks, you may pay 1. When you do, a creature cannot block this turn. So Frenzied Goblin for like way more mana than Frenzied Goblin, but at least she has prowess. No, that's fine. I'm just going to give this a 3.6. It doesn't deserve that. 3.4. 3.5. I'll split the difference. It's a normal magic card. This is a more than normal magic card. War Balloon is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 4/3 vehicle with flying. You can crew it for 3, or you can pay 1 and put a fire counter on it. As long as it has 3 or more fire counters on it, it's an artifact creature. So pay 6 mana for your 4/3 flyer, I guess. It still can win a game of limited. It's almost an air elemental, but you can pay for it in installments. That's kind of cute. It's not too impressive, though. Let's just give this a 2.2. You'll never play this in Standard a day in your life. Yuan Archers is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 3/1 human archer with reach. When this creature enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Normal, you know, it's kind of a split skin doll or a creature like that. I've always kind of liked this as an ETB trigger, like a FOMO ETB trigger. But again, because FOMO exists, you will not be playing this card. So let's just give this like a 3.3. You know, it's fine. Zhao the Moonslayer is really good. This is 1 and a red for a 2/2 legendary human soldier with menace. Non-basic lands enter tapped. You pay 7 to put a Conqueror counter on Zhao, and as long as Zhao has a Conqueror counter on him, non-basic lands are mountains. You can do the ability, it's at instant speed, so it works pretty well with firebending. I'll say that, but I am not super interested in the Blood Moon mode on this. I actually think that just a 2 mana 2/2 menace that makes your opponent's non-basics enter tapped is playable in standard. Playable in mono red as it is built right this second. This may not have the prowess of an Emberheart Challenger or whatever, but it's still gonna Thalia. Like most of the time, it's effectively gonna play exactly like Thalia. You know, Thalia may not tap down a land or anything, but it kind of does. You know what I mean? Yeah, aggro hate bear, good hate bear. A few of those in this set, right? I feel like every color basically got like a legendary hate bear. So altogether, I think this is a great card that could see play in beyond standard, you know, Pioneer, Modern, especially where there are fetch lands. This is gross, you know, it turns every fetch land into like an Evolving Wilds or something. That's just nasty. So I love it. I'm going to give this card an 8.1. I think that this is just really, really annoying. And is standard playable for sure, if nothing else, for sure. Zuko Exiled Prince is our final red card. This is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a 4/3 legendary human noble with firebending 3. For 3 mana, you exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. Pretty normal magic card, even with the firebending 3. I'll give this a 3.6. Firebending 3 is, you got to respect that. Moving into the green and round to the corner. At last, we look at allies at last. 3 mana, 2 and a green. Wow, we're only 2 hours and 20 minutes in. Huh, all right. This is, anyway, this is 2 and a green for an instant. Affinity for allies. Up to 2 target creatures you control each deal damage equal to their power to a creature an opponent controls. So, usually a 1 mana fight spell if you're in the allies deck. And I'll probably definitely play it there. Probably definitely. You know what I mean? But ultimately, I'm just going to give this like a 3.6. I think it's a playable removal spell in the deck it goes in. Avatar Destiny is 4 mana, 2 and 2 green for an R that enchants a creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your yard and is an avatar in addition to its other types. When enchanted creature dies, mill cards equal to its power. Return this card to its owner's hand and up to 1 creature card milled this way to the battlefield under your control. Look alive, chat. Rate this card. I need a sip of the potion anyway. My voice is going. Rate Avatar Destiny. I'm very interested in what you give this card. Oh, I needed that. I needed a sip of the Reese. This is just coffee, but it's in a Reese's cup. So I guess it makes me think of, I'll take a sip of the Reese's. If only they had Reese's coffee. I'm sure they do. There's got to be like a Reese's coffee creamer somewhere. I bet that exists. I bet it's gross too. Honestly, I bet it's not very good. CT88, thanks for your follow. J Palk, thanks for your follow. And Bad Cop, you followed as well. Gabo Traceal, an hour ago, you followed. Thunderspin Jitsu with the follow. A lot of love, man. Trevor Something with the tier 1 sub earlier. I didn't get to you. Sorry. Greg's Nice, you followed. Pinch Hit Hero with the resub. Again, thanks for all the love tonight, guys. All right, so what do we got? A solid 5. Oh, wow, you guys are on it. 4.5, 4.8, 4.5. It's good. Does it have a home, though? 5.1. The Balrog says 4.4. Decent if it sticks, as long as exile removal isn't prevalent in the format. Yep, Lava Bean. Lotad Lover. I'm a Lotad Lover too. Gives it a 4.2. Content out of 10, maybe a 4. Technobach, that's the best rating all night. Content out of 10. Fuzz Nuts wants to be a 5, but got held back at the DMV, so it only has a learner's permit, 4.5. Yeah, I think that a 4.5 is about right. Now, I asked because I thought a lot of people would put like a 2 something on this. You know, yeah, 5.2, but will likely be a bulk rare. Yeah, I'm seeing bulk rare on this too, to be honest. But I do, and apparently it isn't better than it looks. It's exactly as good as it looks because all of you have rated it like around where I would rate it. You know, just under a 5, if not right at a 5. I think this could potentially be a playable card. As someone has also just pointed out, You can get blown out when you cast this. The Optimator, you said that. And that's the biggest problem with the card, is you have to make sure your opponent's tapped down or has very few cards or no cards when you cast this. If you get blown out, you're in a big, problem here. It's 4 mana, you get blown out, that's an issue. But if this sticks ever, it takes over the game. If this sticks ever, it's going to give a creature like +5, +5, plus more than that. Turns all your creatures into or your one guy wearing it into a Lurgoy type creature. Those can get enormous over the course of the game, especially if other millers, And when this dies, when the creature it's on dies, it kind of rancors, and it can't, you can get blown out when it comes back, but you're not paying mana or anything when it comes back. So if this sticks, if this hits the table and sticks, I think it takes the game over. Like, really, seriously. So I would probably give this like a 4.8. Really, I think this is a subtly decent aura that you gotta get it down through the shields. But once it's down through the shields, I think you just win. Seriously, I think you just win. You might miss on the mill. You might miss on the mill, but hopefully by the time the creature dies that this is on, you've gotten to a point where the creature's power is huge because of the first line of text on the card. And if you mill like 7 when the creature dies, like, you'll hit a creature. Like you really should. But yeah, you might will. You could. But I'm going to move on to Badger Mole here. 5 mana, 4 and a green for a 4/4 Badger Mole. When it enters Earthbend 2, creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have trample. A line of text I always like, but a line of text you can get for like 3 less mana on different cards, so it's not very good. I'm going to give this, well, you get 6 power when it comes into play, don't you? Your land has trample, I guess. It's not good. I'm going to give this a 2.6. Badger Mole Cub is nasty, on the other hand. This is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/2 Badger Mole. When it enters Earthbend 1, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green mana. So you're telling me that I can Llanowar Elves on turn 1. On turn 2, I can play a land and Badger Mole Cub and then tap my Llanowar Elves to play another 2-drop. Seems like a lot of acceleration. As a matter of fact, I can tap my Llanowar Elves to play an additional Badger Mole Cub on turn 2. And then now every time I tap my Llanowar Elves, I get 3 mana. That's pretty cute, honestly. But tapping a creature for mana, I get additional green is good no matter what. Even if you don't have dorks, there are ways like Enduring Vitality makes your creatures tap. We will see it in a second. The green guy for 2 mana that makes your allies tap for mana. That's good with Cub. There's a lot of stuff that's crazy with Cub, dude. An additional green mana every time you tap a creature. Not only good in Commander, I think that could be good in Standard. And it's got kind of a blinkable ETB trigger if you want to use it for that too. Altogether, filthy Magic card. I think this one might actually end up being worth a fair amount of money. I'm gonna give this a 7.3. I think this is quite good. Yeah, the animated land obviously counts. Yeah. Everyone in chat. Yeah, the land's a creature now. Yeah, I mean that's obviously what the card does. It's, beyond the Earthbent land, it can also give a bunch of other creatures. I just didn't feel the need to point that out. But yeah, the land that it Earthbends also taps for 2 mana now. Yeah. Anyway, I think this is a banger of a Magic card, seriously. But the Boulder Ready to Rumble. Yeah, good catch, guys. Yeah, the Boulder Ready to Rumble is 4 mana. 3 and a green for a 4/4 legendary human warrior performer. Whenever the Boulder attacks, Earthbend X being the number of creatures you control, with power 4 or greater. I like that he's a pro wrestler. People keep telling me that this guy's a pro wrestler on the show. So that's cool. Goes into Ouroboros day 1. What? The Boulder? Probably not. This guy, Badger Mole Cub, does he go? I don't know, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, it turns out if it's a green creature that you're going to play, yeah, it goes into Ouroboros because you always play Ouroboros in green. So yeah, technically. The Boulder I'm not too impressed by, to be honest. I'm going to give this a solid 2.9. Something like that. Yeah, no, the Cub. Yeah, the Cub goes into Ouroboros. Yeah, it could. Because you're playing Llanowar Elves all the time anyway. Like, you're always playing Llanowar Elves in that deck. And I guess you're tapping other stuff. And like, you play this on turn 2. And it's not the mana dork, but it kind of is. Like, you're kind of getting a mana dork when you play this on 2, right? Because now your land taps for 2 mana. So there you go. The Boulder's voiced by Mick Foley. That's awesome. Are you serious? Dude, the Blind Bandit is I'm going to have to look that up. The Blind Bandit. I'm going to kill my speedrun time right now by putting that in my notes app. The Blind Bandit is the episode. Well, actually, I don't have to put it in my notes app. I'm just going to go to Safari and open a new tab. Blind Bandit Avatar, and that'll tell me what actual episode it is. Yeah, season 2, episode 6. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Mick Foley. Boy, I love me some Mick Foley. But Boomy, King of 3 Trials, is 6 mana, 5 and a green for a 4/4 legendary human noble ally. When Boomy enters, choose up to X, X being the number of lessons in your graveyard. Either put 3 +1/+1 counters on Boomy, target player scries 3, or Earthbend 3. So you're actually, if you get to do all 3 things, you're not doing that much. I still think nothing standard playable at least. So I'm going to give Boomy a 3.6. Cycle of Renewal is 3 mana, 2 and a green for an instant speed lesson. Sack a land. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands. Put them on the battlefield tapped. Shuffle up. So it's just a strictly better Harrow in a lot of ways because it's a lesson. This is very good. There's like 3 tremendously good ramp cards in the set, and this is one of them. This goes in Tifa along with Spring Bloom Druid. As a matter of fact, I think this is better than Druid. You know, it's not a body, but it's instant speed. That could be really good with like Mossberg Hydra. So, Mossborn Hydra. I always call him Mossberg Hydra, and half the time it's a mistake. I do that because, you know, it's a shotgun of a card. But yeah, Harrow is a good card in standard. It just is a good card. So, yeah, 6.5. Yeah, common. It's just a common. 6.5 if it's a 1 point. You know, this is a very good card. Diligent Zookeeper's tough, man. 3 and a green for a 4/4 human citizen ally. Each non-human creature you control gets +1/+1 for each of its creature types, up to a maximum of 10. So this is really good with the livestock from earlier, the curious farm animals. I think they become like a 5/5 if you got a Zookeeper in play. That's cute. This is probably good, but it's kind of tough to judge. It's a little bit tough to judge, honestly. I will throw a 5.3 at this, because this could actually have a lot of relevance the turn it comes into play. But I think most of the time it's going to be just fine. Just kind of okay, right? So that sounds like a 5.3 to me. The Earth King, I am kind of too excited about. You know what I mean? A little bit. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 2/2 legendary human noble ally. When the Earth King enters... Wait, did I screw something up? Oh, yeah, these come into play tapped. Does Harrow not put the lands on the battlefield tapped? Does it just give you 2 lands on the battlefield? That's way better. So, yeah, this is not strictly better than Harrow, but it's still a 6.5. The Earth King is 4 mana for a 2/2. It's a legendary human noble ally. When the Earth King enters, you get a 4/4 green bear creature token. Whenever one or more creatures you control power 4 or greater attack, search your library for up to that many basic lands, throw them on the field tapped, and shuffle. I think this is kind of great. I think this is like somewhat great. I seriously do. Even if it's just a bear, I get to, you know, get a land every turn. But if I have 2 guys in play, 2 4-power attackers, I get to explosive vegetation like every turn. It might be a little bit win more. I'll acknowledge that. But anything that lets me ramp a bunch of times in the same game, I'm kind of into. So I'll respect this with a 5.5. I think it's okay. Earth Kingdom General is cute. Again, it's like the bigger this card gets. Like the more I see this card large, the more I think this just looks exactly like Saffron Olive to me. He's got the big man bun. He's got the giant like long beard. That's Seth. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 2/2 human soldier ally. When it enters, Earthbend 2. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a guy, you may gain that much life. Do this only once each turn for some reason. I don't know why. Well, I mean, were too many infinite life combos? If not, who cares? This is not standard playable, but it is cute. It's a very cute Magic card. I'm going to throw a 3.4 at this. I don't think it's close to good enough, but it's cute. Earth Rumble is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a sorcery. Earthbend 2. When you do, up to 1 target creature you control fights target creature an opponent controls. Pretty bad. Pretty bad in terms of fight effects, I think. I'm going to give this a 2.3. Earthbender Ascension is 3 mana, 2 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters, Earthbend 2, and then search your library for a basic. Put it on the battlefield tapped and shuffle. Also has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. When you do, if it has 4 or more quest counters on it, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, and it gains trample until end of turn. I actually think the trample is subtly one of the best parts of this card. I really do. In the Tifa Mossberg Hydra decks, Mossborn Hydra decks it goes in, those already have built-in trample. So I don't think it's amazing in those, but it's still a landfall ability. It still goes and gets a land and has a landfall ability on the same card. I think that's kind of good. And you get an Earthbend too. Well, you know, it's not like you don't get a blocker, you wasted your turn doing nothing, whatever. You get a creature and you get a land. That's pretty good. Don't know if it's better than Summon Fenrir or Overlord of the Hauntwoods or whatever, but I do think it's comparable to those cards. And before too long, especially in ramp decks, before too long, this is going to be online, and then it's a Luminarch Aspirant that gives, you know, trample. If you can get more than one land in a turn at that point, you're giving a bunch of dudes counters and trample. I think this is pretty good. Even if the land dies, it triggers the landfall again. True, Texas Twister. If you block with the land, that's true. If you like block with the land or something, then it comes back into play, landfall. That's cute. That is cute. I think this is one of the better Ascensions, all things considered. All things considered counts at like 3 or 4 now, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I think this is one of the better Ascensions, and it's probably standard playable. I'm going to give this a 6.5. I think it's up there, dude. Earthbending Lesson is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a lesson. That's sorcery speed. Earthbend 4. That's all. That's the whole card. You get a 4 mana 4/4. That's it. 2. I'll give it a 2. Earthen Ally is a single green mana for a 0/2 human soldier ally that gets +1/+0 for each color among allies you control. You can pay 2 in Wooburg, a total of 7, to Earthbend 5. Cute 1-drop, but not as good as it looks, I think. Even if you have 5 colors worth of allies, I don't think it's that great. Maybe that's blasphemy of a 1 mana 5/2 sounds fun, right? But I'm still not super convinced about this guy. I'll have to be convinced. 5 color allies, the mana base is actually easy. I think we can make the deck. And I think this is your 1-drop, so it goes in. But it remains to be seen if it's good enough, and if 5 color allies is really good and standard, I doubt it. So I'm going to give this like a 4.4. No, I'm not. Let's respect it a little bit more. Let's respect this a little bit more. I gave that stupid 2 mana lady that gives you a clue when she comes into play a 4.8 earlier. I really got to revise that score. She gets like a 4.3. That's my final offer. This, on the other hand, I will give a 4.92. Not quite the 5 I want it to be, but I will give it a 4.9. Next is Elemental Teachings. This thing's sick. 5 mana, 4 and a green for an instant speed lesson. Search your library for up to 4 land cards with different names. Reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Those ones go into your graveyard. The rest go on the battlefield tapped. Shuffle up. So 1 more mana than, you know, a Gifts Ungiven. But basically does what a Gifts Ungiven does, just with lands. Note that you can, you know, pick, it doesn't have to be basics or anything, just 4 land cards. That's pretty good. Instant speed ramp 2 is nice. And putting the lands in your graveyard could be nice because there's ways of getting them out or whatever. So I love this card. Not convinced it's standard playable, but if we get like a Bant control deck, I think it might be all right. But it could be a bust too. That's the thing. It bothers me. This card could be a total bust at the end of the day. But I think that I'm going to err on the side of love here and give it a 5.7. I think that it's pretty good. I do. Flopsy Boomy's Buddy is 6 mana, 4 and double green for a 4/4 legendary ape goat. When he enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Each creature you control with power 4 or greater cannot be blocked by more than 1 creature. So you try to make sure those creatures have menace. The ones you control, they have menace. And now they can't be blocked by more than 1 guy. And so they can't be blocked at all. The +1/+1 counter on each creature you control includes Flopsy. So it's really a 6 mana 5/5. When you look at it that way. And really, it's a 6 mana guy that's going to put, you know, 8 or 9 power into play most of the time. That's not bad either, but still probably not standard playable. I will say, pretty good guy in limited, though. I'm going to give this a, I'm going to go 3.7 just because I want to play him in Menace decks. Foggy Swamp Vinebender is 4 mana, 3 and a green for a 4/3 human plant ally that cannot be blocked by a creature's power of 2 or less. Waterbend 5 to put a +1/+1 counter on this guy during your turn only. Also, you can do that as many times as you want. So in limited, I think this guy's sneaky. Like, he could get bigger and bigger turn over turn until, like, your opponent can't chump him and they just die to him. I think that's cute, but, you know, too cute for standard. 2.5. Great Divide Guide is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/3 human scout ally. Each land and ally you control has tap to add a mana of any color. I was talking about this dude earlier. Pretty good, especially in allies, right? He fixes your mana no matter what. I'll give this dude a 6. I'll do that. Haru, Hidden Talent, is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 1/1 legendary human peasant ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, Earthbend 1, which is on a 2-mana guy is not that bad. It's really not. This is another one that I'm looking at for Pauper EDH. I think in PDH, this is a really cool commander that you can probably do like more with than you think, right? But ultimately, probably not super standard playable. So I'm forced to give this like a 4.5, but I actually really like this ability. Invasion Tactics is 5 mana, 4 and a green for an enchantment. When it enters, creatures you control get +2/+2 till end of turn. Whenever one or more allies you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So cute, but 5 mana is just right out of playability. You can't play this in standard. Kind of a limited overrun effect, though. It sometimes draws you cards if it doesn't end the game right away. So good piece there. I think at the pre-release, if you're playing allies, you want to play this card. But nowhere else. Let's give this a 3. Kyoshi Island Plaza is a good saga. This is 4 mana, 3 and a green, or shrine rather. 3 and a green for a legendary shrine enchantment. When it enters, search your library for up to X basic lands, where X is the number of shrines you control. Put them cards on the battlefield, tap, shuffle up. Whenever the shrine you control enters, search your library for a basic, throw it on the battlefield, tap, shuffle up. So this should, if you control one other saga, be the rate you want it to be. Explosive Vegetation. 4 mana, go get 2 lands, slap them on the table, tap. However, this will pay you so much more than Explosive Vegetation if you play more shrines in your deck. That's not bad. So I think the moment you get a 3rd land off of this, it's a very good card. I'm going to give this a 5.2. I think it's a really good shrine. Seriously. Next is Leaves from the Vine. 2 mana, 1 and a green for a saga. It's not too impressive, though. Mill 3 cards on Chapter 1, and then you get a food token. Chapter 2, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 guys you control. And on Chapter 3, draw a card if there's a creature or lesson in your graveyard, which should be easy enough, especially after the mill. So 2 mana to get some graveyard effects, make a food token, put 2 +1/+1 counters on things, and draw cards. A card. That is good value for 2 mana, but I still don't think this card is playable. I think on turn 2, you want to be in the business, playing business, playing something that sets you up a little bit better. This is a lot of value turn over turn, but it's all small value, and I think we can do better generally. So I'm going to give this a 3.6. I think that it's okay, but I don't think we're actually going to play it too much. Legend of Kyoshi is 6 mana, 4 and double green for a saga. On Chapter 1, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. On Chapter 2, Earthbend X, X being the number of cards in your hand. That land also becomes an island for flavor purposes, I'm sure. And on Chapter 3, exile it, return it transformed as Avatar Kyoshi. This is a 5/4. Lands you control have trample and hexproof. And tap to add X mana of any colors. X being the greatest power among creatures you control. And note that this is a creature you control. So that means you're adding 5 mana when you tap this. It's pretty good, right? I think this is a ridiculous commander card. I think in mono green and other like green X decks, this just taps for at least 5, if not more mana, fairly easily. On this side, and on this side, it's Rishkar's Expertise. It just draws you a bunch of cards, and that's good. So I think in commander, this sees tons of play. Standard, basically none. So I'll give this a 4.3. I'll respect its power level a little bit, but I don't think we'll be seeing it around. Origin of Metal Bending is 2 mana, 1 and a green for an instant speed lesson. Choose 1. Cast Naturalize, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Or you could also put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control and it gains indestructible till end of turn. So you cast Naturalize, or you cast a slightly more expensive Snakeskin Veil. This card's a banger. Card's a real banger. Love this thing, and I think it might show up from time to time. Seriously. If you have a creature you want to protect enough, slaps. So I'm going to give this card like a 6.3. Like I'm so serial right now. This is actually like more than playable, and you will do so. So I like it. Ostrich Horse, 3 mana. What the hell are you? I don't remember seeing you ever. 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 3/1 bird horse. When it enters mill 3, then you may put a land card from among them into your hand. If you don't, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. One of these guys. So 3 mana to mill 3 on ETB and sometimes get a land. 3. Not even. 2.9. Pillar Launch is a green for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2, gains reach till end of turn. Untap it. Normal, limited combat tricks get a 2.5, which this is. Raucous Audience is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/1 human citizen. Tap to add a green. If you control a creature power 4 or greater, add double green instead. Fire, flames, not bad. That's pretty good, actually. So I'm going to give this, it's a decent mana dork, man. starting on, turn 3 or 4, you can pretty easily have a 4-power guy. Let's say on turn 2, I play this. Turn 3, I spend 3 mana to play a 4-power guy. And now I can tap this for 2 green mana. Play another 2-drop. Play another copy of Audience, whatever. It's not bad. As far as mana dorks go, it's pretty good. And easy to enable. So I think this guy kind of looks like me back here. Look at this guy. This guy. He's fat. He's got the tummy. He's not like fat, but he's got a little tummy. That's me right there. And he's got defined arms. That's me. I've got well-defined arms. And he is also bald with a ponytail. You see that? You see? He's got the craziest hairline you ever seen. The oldest man hairline in the world. He might as well just let the rest of his hair go, but he can't do it. He's got hair back here, and you can tell there's a little bit of a pony thing right there. Maybe it's a streamer, but it looks like a ponytail to me. This guy's me. This man is just me. I'm going to give this... I'm going to give this a 5.9. I think it deserves it. It's a good mana dork. Rebellious Captives is 2 mana, 1 in the green for a 2/2 human peasant ally with exhaust 6. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on this guy. Earthbend 2, so that's not good at all. It's a 2-drop that's relevant later in the game, but for too much, 6 mana, that's crazy. 2.1, it's pretty bad. Rockalanch is 3 mana, 2 in a green. Yeah, he's a wrestling fan too. That's right. He's even more me because they're watching a wrestling match right now, and he's going crazy about it. He does seem to be the one going the least crazy. That's because he appreciates the art form. He really is me. Rockalanch is 3 mana, 2 in a green for a sorcery speed lesson. Earthbend X, X being the number of forest you control. Flashback for 5 in a green. Cards like this used to be somewhat playable. They call the herd and stuff. Not anymore, though. Firmly limited card, and I'm not even sure how good it is there. So I'm going to give this, like a 2.6. It's just not good. Rocky Rebuke is 2 mana, 1 in a green for an instant. A creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a creature an opponent controls. So, literally, Bite Down? Is it just a functional reprint of Bite Down? What do you give a card like that? What do you? 4.8. Nah, 4.6. 4.6. Just a fine removal spell in green. Like one of the better versions of this effect. Saber-tooth Mouse Lion. Moose Lion, it's not a mouse. Saber-tooth Moose Lion is 6 mana. 4 in double green for a 7/7 Elk Cat. Cat Cube with reach. And Forest Cycling 2. Foo-foo Cuddly Pops. Cuddly Poops. Foo-foo Cuddly Poops. Didn't look much like a saber-tooth Moose Lion to Saga, but his mother certainly did. Funny. All right, so he really names it. Is this from an episode he really names the thing Foo-foo Cuddly Poops? Maybe I do want to watch this cartoon. So this is a normal guy. Pretty normal dude here. I'm going to give him a 3.6. Seismic Sense looks pretty okay. Single green mana for a sorcery speed lesson. Look at the top X cards of your library, X being the number of lands you control. You may reveal a creature or land from among them, put it into your hand. The rest go on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is worse on the first few turns than like a commune with nature. It's kind of a take on a card like that. But on turn 6, 7, 8, whatever, like especially in your land ramp deck, we've already seen some good pieces at land ramp. We're about to see another one in the next card. This can be great. Like turn 5, you got 6, 7 lands in play. It's basically a tutor at that point. It's basically a tutor, dude. Really like this. It's bad early. I will acknowledge that it's bad early. And I'll acknowledge it's sorcery, but it only costs 1 mana. Like, shut up. So I actually kind of want to give this like a 6. I don't, but I'm not. I'm going to give this a 5.7. I'm going to temper my expectations a little. But, this kind of reminds me of like that thing with plot that does this. It does this, but it has plot. And that card's good. So, I'll give it a 5.7. I like this card a good bit. Seriously. Yeah, consult the star charts to see play. Why can't this? Shared Roots is really good. This is Rampant Growth, but it's a sorcery speed lesson. It's basically strictly better Rampant Growth. It's 2 mana, search your library for basic, throw it on the field, tap, shuffle up. Lesson at sorcery speed. I also like the art on this a lot, and it's not too like Avatar-y, Like Aang and I guess that's probably Katara are in the background over there, but if you didn't know that was them, you wouldn't have to know. Card is beautiful as far as the art goes. What do you give Rampant Growth in Standard? It's our new best friend. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Yeah, that last card is basically Scry X, draw 1 for 1 green mana. That's pretty good. God, what do you give this card? I'm going to give Rampant Growth, 7. I'm serious. This is always one of the better ramp. There's a reason. Let me put it this way. There's a reason they haven't printed rampant growth into standard in a long time. Do green decks need more ramp? They'll play this. They'll play this card for sure. Sparring Dummy. I'll stick with a 7. This card is rampant growth is good. It's just a good card. Sparring Dummy is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 1/3 artifact scarecrow creature with defender. Tap to mill a card. You may put a land card milled this way into your hand. However, if you milled a lesson card this way, instead you gain 2 life. If you didn't get a lesson or a land card, you just milled a card. So I guess tab mill a card is kind of all right. Also, he's Melon Lord. Mwahaha. I'm sure that's really funny. It's kind of bad. Like when it all comes down to it, it's kind of bad. Still, I guess you can draw lands off of it, and that could be worse. So I will give this a 4, like right out of 4. I like drawing lands. Toph the Blind Bandit. Our first Toph here is 3 mana, 2 and a green for a star 3 legendary human warrior ally. When it enters, Earthbend 2, and Toph's power is equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on lands you control, which is cute, but too cute. Too cute to truly be good, I think. You know? I guess once you've Earthbend 2 your second land and it's a 4/3, but that's still not good enough. So I'm going to give Toph a 3.4. I really don't think this card is great. True Ancestry is fine, though. This is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a sorcery speed lesson. Return up to 1 permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Create a clue token. So what is that? Nature's Lore, I think is the name of the card. But just pays you a clue token, too. So it's instantly, not just strictly better than the Nature's Lore, but way better than Nature's Lore. Is this card playable in Standard? I don't know, but I don't know if effects like this are playable in Standard anymore. But I think that in a vacuum, just card's good. Card's good. A regrow effect that also draws a card and is a lesson, you know? Altogether, I like it. So I'm going to give this a 5.4. I'm going to go out on a limb and give it a slightly higher score than I think it really deserves because this card's kind of a banger. Anyway, Turtle Duck is a single green mana for a 0/4 turtle bird with art that I adore. You can pay 3 and until end of turn it has base power 4 and gains trample. So it gets huge. It gains trample. I do like a 1-drop that becomes relevant later on in the game. And 3 mana is not that much to ask for that. It really isn't, but still not great in Standard. You will not play this. Even in your Birds deck, you just probably won't play this. So I'll give it a 3.3 though. Unlucky Cabbage Merchant, the poor guy, is 2 mana, 1 and a green for a 2/2 human citizen. When it enters, you get a food token. Whenever you sack a food, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. If you search your library this way, put this guy on the bottom of its owner's library and then shuffle. So this isn't Steve. You know, this isn't Sakura Tribe Elder, but it may be the next or third best thing after Steve, you know. At least you get a food. At least you get the food. You don't have to sacrifice the food by paying mana. You can always sack the food to a different effect. And then you get to ramp. And yeah, Cabbage Merchant goes back in your deck, which I think is fun flavor, by the way. But still, at the end of the day, I think it's a decent package that probably won't see play in Standard, but is a hair away. Is a hair away from being good enough. So I'm going to give this a 4.9 for that reason. Walltop Sentry is our final green card. 2 and a green for a 2/3 human soldier ally with reach and death touch. Good combination. When it dies, if there's a lesson in your yard, you gain 2 life. Pretty good at the common slot for limited, but obviously we're not that worried about limited in this review, so I'm just going to give this a 3.2. I don't think you'll ever play it, but again, reach and death touch is good. All right, here come the gold cards, y'all. Aang at the Crossroads costs 5 mana, 2 and Bant for a 3/3 legendary human avatar ally with flying. When it enters, look at the top 5 of your library, put a creature card, mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep, and you get Aang Destined Savior, a 4/4 flyer. Lands you control have vigilance. At the beginning of your combat on your turn, Earthbend 2. So, very easy to flip. Just have a creature die and it flips over. The problem is once it flips, it's not like that impressive. You know, it's a 4/4 flyer, you get an Earthbend 2 every turn. But I guess it could take over a game. Making a 2/2 every turn could take over the game. And the fact that it has vigilance is pretty good considering their lands. You know, so that's fine, I guess. But the front half of this I really like. 5 mana for potentially 9 mana value is good. There's plenty of creatures in your yard at this point. For 4 mana, you could probably fish out and do something with. Biza, the Bounding Spring, springs to mind. But also like Enduring Curiosity, there's a number of cards that you could either pitch or, you know, even Abhorrent Oculus or something, you know, seems okay. for something like this. Mana value 4 or less is not that much of a restriction. You still get a lot of value off this. There's no Bant deck in standard, like Bant mid-range, that wants this currently. So I don't think it has a home day one, and I don't think it will actually see that much play. But in a vacuum, card has a relatively high power level. So I'm going to give this like a 6 with room to grow, with definite room to grow. Aang's Swift Savior is one of the better cards in the set. This is 3 mana, 1, a white, and a blue for a 2/3 legendary human avatar ally with flash and flying. When it enters, airbend up to 1 other target creature or spell. Waterbend 8 and transform Aang into Aang and La Ocean's Fury, a 5/5 legendary avatar spirit ally with reach and trample. And whenever Aang and La attack, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, including Aang and La, by the way. So kind of when it attacks, it's a 6/6 trample. And that's pretty good. That's not bad. Waterbend 8 is a little bit difficult to perform, so you might never get this flipped over. But this is one of those cards where you don't care about flipping it. If you flip it, that's just gravy, you know? The real upside to this is the front half. This is a Spell Queller effect that's also kind of reminiscent of Venser. Because like Spell Queller, it can target an effect on the stack. Venser can do that too. But like Venser, this can also target creatures on the table. Your opponents, yeah, which is good tempo. I think you'll do that a lot. When they go to attack, flash in Aang, whatever, airbend their guy, and take that tempo. But it's worth noting this can protect your own creatures by airbending them. It can repeat ETB triggers by airbending them. That's something that like Spell Queller doesn't do. It's something Venser only rarely does. So yeah, even Interrupter, but flexible, basically. And I think it is a better card than Interrupter in Standard. So really like this, like a lot. Again, I think it's one of the better cards in the set, especially for Standard specifically. I think that's where this card shines the most. So I'm going to give Aang, again, specifically for Standard, like an 8.5. I think this card is kind of maybe the best card in the set. Like top 5, right? But next, Abandon Attachments. So there's a Tormenting Voice you can play in your mono blue deck. 1, a blue and a red, well, blue-red hybrid rather. For an instant speed lesson, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. So note 2, it's not strictly Tormenting Voice. Tormenting Voice effects, you have to discard the card as an additional cost of casting the spell. So if you get counterspelled or otherwise blown out, you discarded the card. There's nothing you can do. This resolves, and then you choose to discard the card. So that's typically better than a Tormenting Voice effect. It draws 2 in mono blue, while also in your blue-red deck, this triggers Marauding Mako. This triggers Monument to Endurance. You know, it can help you throw cards in your yard if you want to do that for future, whatever. In like Jeskai Oculus or something like that. So yeah, I think this is actually much better than the average Tormenting Voice effect, and it's a lesson, and it's instant speed. Just pretty cool. You can choose not to discard, just get it in your yard. You can. That's a mode on the card. But yeah, altogether pretty cool. I'm gonna give this just a 5, just a right out of 5. I think it's pretty solid. Air Nomad Legacy is 2 mana, a blue and a white for an enchantment. Creatures you control with flying get +1/+1, and when this thing enters, you get a clue token. So favorable winds plus clue token, yeah, man, that's pretty okay. I think that this, yeah. By the way, Abandoned Attachments just puts 2 lessons in your yard, like discard a lesson and attachments goes in your yard. That's pretty slick. But Legacy, I'm going to give this card a 6.2. Pretty high, but I like 2 mana Anthem effects. I like favorable winds, and I like the clue token. I really like the clue token a lot. So, cool card. Avatar Aang over here, the Chase Aang from the set, is 4 colors. Can you guess which ones? The ones he bends. It's red, green, white, and blue for a 4/4 legendary human avatar ally with flying and firebending too. Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, draw a card. Then if you've done all 4 this turn, transform Avatar Aang. How hard is it going to be to do that? Pretty hard. Pretty hard to do all 4 in a turn. But if you do get him transformed, he becomes Master of Elements, a 6/6 flyer. Spells you cast cost Wooburg less to cast. This can reduce generic costs. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may transform Aang. If you do, you gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, and put 4 +1/+1 counters on him. And he deals 4 damage to each opponent, which is crazy. It's been so long I forgot this Aang. This card is nuts. I will say this about that. I think this is darn near impossible to actually flip over. So what I think this card actually is a 4 mana, difficult to cast, 4/4 flying firebending 2, and not much else. Right? Seriously. Nice moon mist target. Yeah, if you just transform it without having to jump through the hoops, it's crazy. The actual avatar half of this is bananas. That's a really good card. On the other hand, though, I think this is just nearly impossible to actually flip. I seriously think that it is. So I wouldn't take too much stock in it. I will shockingly give this card a 4.5. And that is mostly for a 4/4 flying firebending too. You can't sneeze at that too much. Azula Cunning Usurper. Usurper. It's 5 mana, 2 black, double, well, yeah, 2 black, and a blue. For a 4/4 legendary human noble rogue with firebending 2. Whenever Azula enters, target opponent exiles a non-token creature they control, and then they exile a non-land card from their graveyard. During your turn, you may cast cards exiled with Azula. You may cast them as though they had flash. Mana of any type can be spent to cast the spell. So 5 mana for a kind of sacrifice a creature when it comes into play. It's kind of a Necrotal effect too, but they get too much choice. You never get to choose the card you get out of the graveyard, which is really very feels baddie. That's just not good. And you don't get to choose the creature either. Even though it's non-token, at least it's non-token. That's good. But altogether, I want this to be good. And it's probably just not. It's probably just a 5 mana thing that doesn't do as much as you want it to. So even though you're taking them off board presence, I'm still just going to give this like right out of 5. Solid 5 and not much more. Beifong's Bounty Hunters is 4 mana, 2 black-green for a 4/4 human mercenary. Whenever a non-land creature you control dies, Earthman X. X being that creature's power. So not Luminous Broodmoth, not Nightmare. Well, what is the card I'm thinking of? Nightmare Shepherd. Not even Ratadrabik. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're earthbending. It's not that great. So I'm going to give probably decent and limited, by the way. Probably a bomb and limited in some ways. You know, fighting in the trenches. It's okay. But I'm still just going to give this like a 3.8. I really think this is much lower than it looks. Practically. Bitter Work is maybe a commander card. 3 mana, 1, a red and a green for an enchantment. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more creatures, power 4 or greater, draw 1 card. Exhaust 4, Earthbend 4. Activate only during your turn for some reason. Again, an extra card in Gruul more or less every turn is probably okay in your big creatures deck. I don't mind that. But I think that's about the long and short of it. I don't think this is very standard playable at all. You could call it a Phyrexian Arena for big creatures decks in standard, but I don't know if that's great, you know? So I'm going to give this, I'll give it a 3.9. Still a card draw engine, but not as good a one as you want. Boomy Unleashed is 5 mana, 3 a red and a green for a 5/4 legendary human noble ally with trample. When Boomy enters, Earthbend 4, and when he deals combat damage to a player, untap all lands you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase, but only land creatures can attack during that combat phase. This might be better than it looks. It might be. There's a couple of setups in Standard that allow you to get 5 mana as early as turn 3. And when I say a couple of setups, I mean like 3 or 4 reliable setups. So if you have your 5 mana on turn 3 and you play Boomy, you have 9 power on 2 guys. That's not bad. 9 power on 2 dudes. 5 of that power has trample, and you might be able to attack twice with 4 of that power. Like, okay, kind of. Like, I think this might be slightly underrated. But that said, I'm still just going to give it a 5. Again, solid right out of 5. I think it's better than it looks, but I don't think it has that much life ahead of it. But this one might actually surprise us. It really might. Cat Owl is 4 mana, 3, and then a white-blue hybrid for a 3/3 cat bird. Cat cube with flying. Whenever this creature attacks, untap target artifact or creature. So you can give itself like a pseudo vigilance. That's cute. Untapping an artifact, though, is where the business comes in. You know, we got Gilded Lotus in this format right now. I don't think that matters too much. But still, I think it's a cute card. A lot of additions to the cat cube, right, in this set. I like that about it. But, you know, I'm just going to slap like a 2.9 on this. You know, Phantom Monster plus slight upside is not great. Cruel Administrator is 5 mana, 3 black-red for a 5/4 human soldier with raid. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter if you've raided this turn. Whenever this creature attacks, you get a 2/2 red soldier creature token with firebending 1. This is a little bit bigger than it has any right to be. You know, it's a 5/4 and it becomes a 6/5. You know, if you raid it. That ain't terrible. Makes creatures every turn. I kind of like it, but not destined for standard play again. Signposty, limited uncommon that can win games there. Standard, no. We'll just give it a 3. Daily Agents. This is maybe the pauper commander I want to build the most from the entire set. This is 5 mana, 3. Well, it's probably Cat Gator, really. This is 5 mana, 3 black green for a 3/4 human soldier. When it enters Earthbend 1, then Earthbend 1. Whenever this creature attacks, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them. I want this to be the number of counters on creatures you control. That'd be much better, but I'll still take this. I'll still take attack and hit him for like 4 or 5 drains, Like I'll take that all day. This looks really fun in PEDH, but basically nowhere else. So I'm going to give this a 3. Dragonfly Swarm, on the other hand, looks really good. 3 mana, 1 a blue and a red for a star 3 dragon insect with flying and ward 1. This creature's power is equal to the number of non-creature, non-land cards in your graveyard. Not instants and sorceries. Non-creature, non-land. When it dies, if there's a lesson card in your graveyard, draw a card. Should be easy to finagle that. You know what I mean? So, a Haughty Djinn with a built-in ward ability. No cost reduction like Haughty Djinn, but I guess it's more of a Crackling Drake or an Enigma Drake. It's closest to an Enigma Drake. But Enigma Drake, I believe, is instants and sorceries. This counts enchantments, artifacts, planeswalkers. That's dope. Also has a ward ability. Enigma Drake doesn't have that. Also draws you a card very easily. This is a good card. This is actually a really sick card. I'm going to give Dragonfly Swarm like a solid 5.8. Like, I think it might even be better than that, but I think this might be one of the more fun things to build a budget deck around like day one. Earth Kingdom Soldier is 5 mana, 4 and a Selesnya hybrid for a 3/4 human soldier with Vig. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. 2 normal, we'll give it a 2.6. Earth King's Lieutenant is a green and a white for a 1/1 human soldier ally with trample. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each other ally you control. And whenever an ally you control enters, this gets a +1/+1 counter. Goes in your ally deck. Nowhere else. But like I said, I've been judging these ally cards based on the deck they go in and not just in a vacuum. In a vacuum, this would be a pretty bad score. But in an ally deck, it kind of reminds me of a Champion of the Parish / Champion of the Perished. It costs twice as much, but, if you play it late because you drew it late, first of all, it has trample. The other ones don't have that. But if you play it late because you drew it late, it spreads of counters on dudes. Like it puts like 4 or 5 counters out there. So that's pretty good for just 2 mana. So I like it. I'm going to give it a 6.2, again, in context of the allied decks. Earth Rumble Wrestlers. This guy looks even more like me. He's fat, doesn't have enough of his teeth. This is 4 mana, 3, and then a green-red hybrid for a 3/4 human warrior performer with reach. This creature gets +1/+0 and has trample as long as you control a land creature or a land entered the battlefield under your control. So kind of a landfall ability on this. So you have to work for your 4/4 reach. It has trample eventually too. I guess that's fine, but very limited dude here. I'll give it a 2.8. Earth Village Ruffians, those darned ruffians, 2 and a Golgari hybrid for a 3/1 human soldier rogue. When it dies, Earthbend 2. Again, a little bit normal. Feels slightly like Doom Traveler-y, but So I'm gonna throw a 2.7 at it. Fire Lord Azula is 4 mana, 1 in Grixis for a 4/4 legendary human noble with firebending 2. Whenever you cast a spell while Fire Lord Azula is attacking, copy that spell. Choose new targets for the copy. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Standard playable? I don't think so. But also, I wouldn't be surprised if this does surprise us. Kind of a weird oxymoronic sentence, but yeah. This is one of those where it's like just enough potential to maybe shock. Maybe shock us a little bit, Even if all you're casting is a removal spell. Probably do some real work with this. That said, I'm just going to kind of be safe here and give it a 4.4. Azula's very good. Maybe, but you have to wait a whole turn for her to attack. She's a 4-drop, so she comes down pretty late in the game. You have to have more cards in your hand and stuff to cast with the firebending and stuff to cast to copy. A lot of things have to fall into place. So I don't want to be fooled by it. I will give it a 4.5, but this could be way better than that. Could be. I'll give you that. Could be way better than that. Firelord Zuko could be the overall commander I want to build the most, from this set. This is Mardu colors, red, white, black, for a 2/4 legendary human noble ally with firebending X, X being its power. Whenever you cast a spell from exile and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Good. If you've got enough creatures in play, all you got to do is like impulse draw. if you impulse draw in red and like do the thing where you play like Rin's Resolve, right? Stuff like that. Then when you cast those spells, +1/+1 counter. Cast the other spell off Rin's Resolve, +1/+1 counter. Like, that's so good. So good, man. It works with airbending and blink and stuff like that too. So that's cool. But mostly I want to play this with impulse draw and like make all my dudes enormous. Maybe this is a backup general in Celeste. I actually think that's a cute idea. Because that way you have multiple ways of just spreading counters on your entire team between Celeste and this. It could work out. So I think it's a cool guy, but probably not entirely standard playable. This is another one that might shock us. It really could. But all that said, again, I'm just going to give this like a 4.3, you know, a little bit less than Azula, really, because I think Azula's maybe the more dangerous standard card, all things considered. Counts at 5 for that phrase now, but Zuko just looks like an amazing commander, and I'm going to give him some love for that. Foggy Swamp Spirit Keeper is my favorite Foggy Swamp card in the set. 1, a black and a blue for a 2/4 human druid ally with lifelink. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, you get a 1/1 colorless spirit that can only block spirits and can only be blocked by spirits. Yeah, that's how that works. So a token factory. A lot like Mischievous Mystic. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm shaking the camera. Mischievous Mystic or something like that. Thopta Familiar, right? So I like stuff like this, but the cards like this don't tend to be standard playable. That said, big toughness, lifelink. Could be better than it looks. I'm going to give this like a 4.1. I kind of like this guy. I really do. Guru Patik is a really interesting pauper commander. 2 and then 2 Simic hybrids for a 2/4 legendary human monk ally. When it enters, look at the top 5 of your library. You can reveal a lesson, saga, or shrine card from among them, put it into your hand, the rest go on the bottom in a random order. Whenever you cast a lesson, saga, or shrine spell, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. I like that flavor. The teacher can never get the +1/+1 counter. The teacher can never get stronger, but he makes everyone else stronger that he teaches. That's cute. That's cute flavor. I think this is neat, again, in just like one format, but not standard for sure. It is cute that it digs 5. It's a body that digs 5 cards. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's not terrible. It's not terrible, but not good enough. So I'm going to give this a 3, though. I think it's nice. Hama the Bloodbender is 5 mana, 2 and then 3 Dimir hybrids for a 3/3 legendary human warlock. When she enters, target opponent mills 3 cards. Exile up to 1 target non-creature non-land card from the player's graveyard. For as long as you control Hama, you may cast the exiled card during your turn by waterbending X rather than by paying the mana value or cost, where X is the mana value. So again, cute, but probably limited playable only. 5 mana, I think we're right out here. I don't think this card sees play for 5 mana. But it's worth noting, that since you can waterbend to do it, you might be able to cast the card you get the turn you play this. It's a pretty good ETB trigger. Good target for like airbending and stuff in limited too, but I just don't think it really goes anywhere in standard. So I'm going to give this like a 3.2. And even that I think might be too high. Hey Bye, Spirit of Balance. A great name for a card. Hey Bye is 4 mana, 2 and 2 Orzhov hybrids for a 3/3. This has my favorite art like in the set, by the way. I love this art so much. A 3/3 legendary bear spirit. Whenever Hey Bye enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Hey Bye. When Hey Bye leaves the battlefield, put its counters on a creature you control. That's not very good. It's just, it sucks that it's not good because I do love this card a lot. This card is sick, but I still don't think it's that great. So I'm going to give this like a 2.7 or something. It could be better. Could be better. Hermetic Herbalist is 2 mana, a green and a blue for a 2/3 human druid ally. Tap for a mana of any color. It's good enough. Or tap to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast lesson spells. Do you have like a cat that's a Pomeranian? Because it could just be like a Persian, but it's not. That's a cat that also looks like a Pomeranian. Oh my God, that's so cute. I didn't notice this the first time. It looks so good. Anyway, I'm going to give this card a solid 5. Right out of 5. We have a mana dork that costs 2, and it's a 2/3. Solid already. I don't know why this herbalist could kick my ass. You know what I mean? But I guess it could. But just taps for a mana of any color is fine for 2 mana. But spending, super ramping lessons is really good. That's fantastic. A 10 of 10 for Cat. But I will give this a solid 5. I think it's right there on the level, dude. If she can fight a bear and win, that's a good point. She's beating up bears out there. It's crazy. Wily old lady. Iroh Grand Lotus is 6 mana for some reason. 3, a green, a blue, and a red for a 5/5 legendary human noble ally with firebending 2. During your turn, each non-lesson instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. Flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. During your turn, each lesson card in your graveyard has flashback 1. This looks like it was supposed to be a face commander of an actual commander deck. But instead, we didn't get commander decks. We got the commander bundles this time around. But I feel like this was designed specifically to be face commander in a commander deck. In standard, this card is not good. Even though the text boxes, it makes it look really good. You know what I mean? Deb, please watch Avatar. Stop reading cards and start the first episode right now. Please, I'm begging you. It is so good, Deb, please. Yeah, that'll probably increase our speedrun time a good bit. If I had to guess. If I did that. But I know I should watch this show. Missy Kama Gamer, you're correct. But this looks very commanderish, not super standard playable. So Flashback 1 is tempting, isn't it? Flashback 1 is pretty crazy. But still, I'm just going to give this like a 3.6 in standard. It's not great. Iroh T Master is cute. This is 1, a red, and literally, he's like, he's a cute little guy. But also, like, the card does cute things. 3 mana, 1, a red, and a white for a 2/2 legendary human citizen ally. When Iroh enters, make a food token. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target opponent gain control of target permanent you control. I bet it's going to be the food token. When you do, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on that token for each permanent you own that your opponents control. Way too convoluted and standard. Even with Greed's Gambit, the card isn't playable. I will give this a 2. It's just so bad. It's just terrible. Jet Freedom Fighter. I like, but also not standard playable. For 5 mana, come on. 2 and 3 Boros hybrids for a 3/1 legendary human rebel ally. When it enters, he deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to a creature an opponent controls. And when he dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So, good value. When he dies, you don't lose all of his power toughness. You keep 2/3 of it. That's pretty good. And basically a removal spell on a body. All sweet. Kind of a Flame Tongue Kabu, I guess, of sorts. But still not going to see standard play at 5 mana. I'm going to give this a 3. Katara the Fearless. This is another commander face card here. Bant colors, just a green, a white, and a blue for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally. If a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, the thing happens. It triggers an additional time. So Panharmonicon for allies on a 3 mana 3/3 body. You probably play this in allies. Especially if you're 5-color allies, I think you just throw it in. And judged in the context of the allies deck, I will give this a 6. I think it's probably worth it. Katara Water Tribe's Hope. Thank you very much, OMG Cito, for your prime sub just now. You're awesome. Water Tribe's Hope, this version of Katara, is 5 mana, 2 white, double blue for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally with vigilance. When she enters, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token. And if you waterbend X, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. X cannot be 0. Activate only during your turn. Remember, you can just pay waterbending costs with normal mana. You know what I mean? So you can just, the turn after this comes into play, you got all your mana untapped. Waterbend 5 with all 5 of your manas, and all your guys have base PT 5. That's cool, including Katara. You can swing for 5 with Katara, swing for 5 with the ally she created. She has vigilance too. This is better than it looks. But 5 mana is still a little bit priced out, I think. I think 5 mana is still a little bit too much, but I still think the card's better than it looks. I really do. You got it in play with all your mana untapped. You're getting in for a lot of damage, But that said, I'm not going to give them more than like a 3.9. I don't think the card's that strong, but it's not bad. It really isn't. The Lion Turtle is 3 mana, 1, a green, and a blue for 3/6 legendary elder cat turtle, another cat. Vigilance Reach. When the Lion Turtle enters, you gain 3 life. The Lion Turtle can't attack or block unless there are 3 or more lesson cards in your yard. You can tap it for a mana of any color. So, blue and green appear to be some of the best lesson colors anyway. You got Grand. You got the draw 3 one. You got the 2 mana ramp spell lesson. You got the Harrow. That's a lesson. So, pretty easy, I think, to get 3 lessons in your yard in the Simic deck, right? And this starts being able to attack and block fairly quickly. While it can't attack or block, it adds mana of any color, and it gains 3 life immediately. All gross. All good stuff. It blocks almost everything in the world because it has reach, but still attacks because it has vigilance. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's a pretty solid card. I will ask you guys, though. Haven't asked you guys in a while. What do you rate this card? I think we got one more good chat rate a card in us this time, this video. What do you think the Lion Turtle is worth in terms of score out of 10 decimal places included? Oh, I needed that. I needed that sip so bad. My voice was dry, bro. My voice was drier than a dry bones in the desert. From Mario. Dry bones? You guys know dry bones? Anyway. I would give it a 6, says Ed Snark. Rex Cogitans. That's how you say that. Says 5.1. The Palrog, 5.75. Bronze Nuts with the high 3, son. Trombone Gamer, 5.5. Lessons are mostly teamer. Yeah. True. 5.7 from Tigrease. So far, we've got a pretty decent consensus, somewhere in the 5s. I am going, a 4.6 from Little Jr. That is low. I want 3 mana producers total, same round. Yeah, it's just, I wish that this tap for more or just did something better than tap. But at 4.5. This, I think it's better than some of you are grading it. But in line with where others are. This is not a broken Simic. This is not Uro, right? This is not, oh, dude, they just banned him. The 3 mana flyer that they banned in Modern recently. Why can't I remember his name? He wasn't around for that long. This isn't that. This isn't the Planeswalker they had to ban for this mana cost. I feel like 1 green blue. Nadu, thank you. Passing good night. I appreciate that. It just totally escaped me. And honestly, the Planeswalker's escaping me too. The guy that makes Elks. He made Elks. Oko. That was his name. They ban 3 mana, Simic guys like all the time. Constantly, And by the way, yeah, what's up, Passing good night? I hadn't seen you tonight yet. Good to see you. But yeah, I think this isn't as good as those cards, obviously. But I still think this is better than some of y'all are rating it. I'm going to give this a 5.5. And that's to grow on. I think this could be a 6. I really do. He's never going to have this huge power. But I think gain 3 life is better than it looks. I think that ETB trigger right there is better than it looks. Seriously. But we'll move on to Long Fang, Grand Secretariat, a card I'm kind of excited about for certain commander piles. 3 mana, 1 and 2 Golgari hybrids for a 2/3 legendary human advisor. Whenever another creature you control or land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. So this works with earthbending. Yeah, the lands come back, but they do hit the graveyard when they die after they've earthbent. So that's cute. But I really like this. In Dina Soul Steeper, because you're sacrificing creatures in that green-black Aristocrats deck. That means you're getting a lot of counters on other creatures when you do that. Or perhaps the Jund Edge of Eternities deck, the commander precon. In that deck, a lot of lands are going to the graveyard. They're coming back. But a lot of lands are going to the graveyard in that deck. So, again, spreading counters around. I think this is really good in that thing. So, a few commander decks I'd like to see this in. And honestly, maybe even just in Pauper EDH as your commander. In like a green-black Aristocrats. Not a whole lot of other cards, besides Dina that allow you to do that. So, pretty cool stuff, man. I'm going to give this... None of that was standard, by the way. I don't think it's very good in standard. But in most other formats, I think this is kind of neat. I'm going to give this... Now I got to actually rate it. I'm going to give this card a 4. It could be worse. Messenger Hawk is 3 mana, 2, and then a Dimir hybrid for a 1/2 Bird Scout with flying. When it enters, you get a clue token like it's a Novice Inspector or something. And it gets +2/+0 as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn. I think this is very limited playable, while not being standard playable basically at all. I'm going to give this a 3. Ozai, the Phoenix King, is 6 mana, 2 double black, double red for a 7/7 legendary human noble with trample, firebending 4, and haste. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes red instead. Ozai has flying and indestructible as long as you have 6 or more unspent mana. Shouldn't be too hard to get. 6 mana is a little bit steep in standard, right? A little bit steep. But, oh my God, Nehen1985, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That's a lot. Thank you, dude. You're awesome. I need those. But in any case, This is probably better than it looks. I think a lot of people see a 6-mana guy and they're just like, it's too much. But I think as a reanimator target, this is not as good as, say, a Valgaboth, some other options we have in standard. But under the right circumstances, it's better. It shouldn't be too hard to make this indestructible after a turn or two. I like that about it. Firebending 4 makes it to where, let's say I zombify this on turn 4 and then attack with it immediately because it has haste, just built-in haste. So I zombify this on turn 4, attack with it immediately, and it pays for my zombify. Cool. It's not every day you see that, right? So I think that's actually really good. I'm going to give Azai a 5.4. He's up there. I don't know if he's the reanimator target, but he's up there, dude. Platypus Bear. It's pretty bad. And the poor cabbage guy. This is 1 in the green-blue hybrid for a 2/3 Platypus Bear, but Defender when it enters mill 2. As long as there's a lesson card in your yard, the creature can attack as though it didn't have Defender. I do like enter mill 2, but altogether it's a pretty bad card. We'll give it a 2.5. Pretending Poxbearers is 1 and then an Orzhov hybrid for a 2/1 human citizen ally. When it dies, you get a 1/1 ally creature token. So a Doom Dissenter with inverted PT, right? I think Doom Dissenter is a 1/1 that makes a 2/2 when it dies. This is a 2/1 that makes a 1/1. So nothing really to write home about. We will give the double P here a 2.9. It's not bad. Professor Z, anthropologist, or Professor Zay, rather, anthropologist, is a 2 Izzet hybrids. It's a 0/3 legendary human advisor ally. You tap it, discard a card to draw a card. Or you can pay 1, tap it, and sacrifice it to return an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Only activate during your turn. So I think this is actually kind of slick. It's a role player-ish kind of card, but if nothing else, it is a Merfolk Looter. Right? It's exactly Merfolk Looter. That also sometimes gets back a removal spell or a card draw spell or whatever, So I think there's something to it. I'm going to give this a 5. Right at. Acceptable Magic card. That's what that means. Saga Bold Boomeranger is great. This is a blue and a red for a 1/1 legendary human warrior ally. When Saga enters, discard up to 2 cards. Draw that many cards. Whenever you cast an artifact or lesson spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Saga. Now, we were pretty sure when we first saw this card that lessons were going to be crappy. Turns out the lessons are pretty good, so that makes this card much, much better. There is that. But just cast an artifact spell, get a counter on him, that's good too. That is more than acceptable, especially in your Monument to Endurance deck where you're casting at least 1 artifact in that deck, sometimes more than once in a game. But this is good in all of those decks that play Marauding Mako, Tersalite Shatter, Steamcore Scholar, like all the stuff that lets you draw a discard. Sometimes it plays Proph's Eidetic Memory. Usually it does. This just goes in there day 1. And we've only seen like 4 cards in the whole video that have day 1 homes, and this has that. This probably goes in, especially if Vivi gets banned. We have seen over the last couple of months, especially since they made the announcement that they were probably going to ban Vivi eventually, we have seen a no Vivi blue-red deck. No Vivi, no Cauldron, just Mako, Scholar, Tersalite Shatter, get at them. Fear of missing out. That core with Proph's Eidetic Memory tends to be good enough most of the time, it turns out. So, Saga just slots into that deck like right away. Like Vivi or not is the point I'm making. Saga slots into right away, that deck. I think it does a lot of work there. So I'm going to give Saga a 7.3. I think this card is very good, and again, sees day 1 play in standard. Saga Lateral Strategist, on the other hand, is 3 mana, 1 and 2 Azorius hybrids for a 2/4 vigilance. Whenever Saga and at least 1 other creature attack, draw a card. That's not that bad. It's really not. Is this really Babar's house has subbed with Prime for the last 6 months? Yes, I assure you, you're in Babar's house. The place and Babar's house are actually the same place. I know Babar very well. No, I will not go get him. He takes his time off very seriously. He's actually a really crappy roommate. But anyway, Saga this is kind of okay in some ways. I'm going to give this a 4.3. I think that's all right. Just attack with 2 guys, draw a card. On a 2/4 vigilance? Okay, fine. But Saga Tenacious Tactician is another one of the commanders that I want to build the most from this set. This is 1 in Jeskai, so 4 total mana for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally with menace and prowess. Other allies you control have menace and prowess, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, my favorite line of text, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a 1/1 white ally creature. Not good in standard. Come on, we all know it's just not playable there, but again, massive idiot for any card that says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, do a thing. Just a total dork for cards like that. And this one does my favorite thing. When you cast a non-creature, make a creature. Whoo! I'm, again, just a massive idiot for cards like this. So, Commander, I give it a 10. I want to build this thing all day, but in Standard, I'll just give it like a 3.9. It's just not good enough, and I am so sorry. Suki Kyoshi Warrior is 4 mana 2, and then 2 Selesnya hybrids for a star 4 legendary human warrior ally whose power and toughness, your power rather, is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever Suki attacks, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token that is tapped and attacking. So it kind of reminds me of like a Goblin Rabble Master, you know, in a way. It's just not as good as Goblin Rabble Master, particularly because of power creep. Power creeps happen. Rabble Master's not as good as Rabble Master once was. Cool card, though. I'm going to give this a 4. I will also give Saga a 4. These both get 4s retroactively. Bump Saga up a 10th of a point. But yeah, I think these both get 4s. They're both solid, but probably not too standard playable. Sun Warriors is 2, a red and a white for a 3/5 human warrior ally with firebending X. X being the number of creatures you control. Pay 5 to make a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this can firebend for a bunch. And that is tempting, but it is not standard playable. I'm going to give this a 2.9. Tolls of War, a cool card. This is a white and a black for an enchantment. Whenever this enchantment enters, create a clue token. Whenever you sack a permanent during your turn, including that clue token it gave you, create a 1/1 white ally creature token once per turn. So only procs during your turn, only does so once a turn. That said, still kind of a bitter blossomy thing. It shouldn't be too hard to sack a thing every turn and get tokens off of this. So cute, but probably just that. Probably just a little too cute. So I'm going to give this like a 5. I'll shoot a 5. It's fine. Toph, Hard-Headed Teacher. A lot of people saying that this is AI art, but it turns out that's because the artist involved in this has a company that works with AI. But the artist herself actually does art for Magic cards with materials. She works within a non-AI medium to create Magic cards, and she's done so before. It's not her first Magic card. So people jumping on this card, this card's AI, this card's generative AI. That's not, we don't know yet if that's true. If it is, I think Wizards in a lot of trouble. But this person has done art for Magic before, and it hasn't been Gen AI, even though they're involved with a company that does work with AI. So I wouldn't just call AI on this thing just yet, but who knows? This is 4 mana. I like to see what cards do, though. So let's do that. This is 4 mana, 2 red-green for a 3/4 legendary human warrior ally. When it enters, you may discard a card. If you do, return an instant or sorcery card from your yard to your hand. Whenever you cast a spell, Earthbend 1. If that spell's a lesson, put an additional +1/+1 counter on that land. I have a little bone to pick with my own comment section. I don't want to jump on people too hard here. Spread love and be kind and all that. But a lot of people, when I said in the preview video today that, this is not a Gruul ability, this is kind of a blue ability, being able to get back an instant or sorcery card. It does not feel Gruulish. I had a lot of people in the comment section be like, but it's red. Sometimes red gets back instants and sorceries. Like, yeah, I said Gruul. Does it feel Gruul smashish to get back an instant or sorcery? You know what I mean? Like a deck full of huge slobbering menace trample guys. Does this feel like a Gruul ability? Like, yeah, I'll give you that red does it. Does Gruul? Not usually. So that was kind of the point I was wanting to make. But in any case, both of these abilities are pretty good. Decent ETB trigger, right? I'll take back a sorcery or instant all day. That seems great. And whenever you cast a spell, dude, I was just saying I mark out for stuff that says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, do stuff. This is just whenever I cast any spell ever, I kind of make a 1/1. I'm excited about that, but not for standard. I apologize. I will give this a 4, though. I think that there's definitely good stuff about it, and blinking it is definitely an option too, so kind of like it. Toph, the first Metal Bender, on the other hand, is much more commandery to me in most ways. 1 in Naya colors, green, red, white, for a 3/3 legendary human warrior ally. Non-token artifacts you control are lands, in addition to their other types. At the beginning of your end step, Earthbend 2. So there's been a lot of really fun commander setups I've seen with this line of text, non-token artifacts you control are lands. People have been doing crazy stuff with that. If you just go to EDH type this card, and you'll see some wackiness, but in standard, this card is just bad. It just is bad. Like 3.7 in standard, sadly. But we will look at Uncle Iroh next. He wants you to play a game of cards, so I have to like him as a Magic player. This is 3 mana, 1 and 2 Gruul hybrids for a 4/2 legendary human noble ally. Firebending 1. Less than spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. There's a couple of things that do that in this set, right? Cool card. And even with the lessons we've seen, though, like even with the fact that the lessons we've seen have been good, I don't think this guy is that playable in standard. So sorry. I'm going to give this a 3.6. I don't think it's very good. Vindictive Warden is 3 mana, 2 and then a black-red hybrid for a 2/3 human soldier with menace, firebending 1, and pay 3. This creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So what we have here is an infinite combo, infinite mana in Commander, I win the game card. Anytime you see an open-ended, does not tap, deal a damage to opponent, no matter what the mana cost is, you have to remember that there are infinite mana combos in Commander, a lot of them, and this will just end the game. There might be better stuff to do it, but if it's between this and Walking Ballista, I would rather pay 10 cents than $10. So I'll play this over Ballista sometimes, right? But yeah, just you got to remember that. But in standard, it's a poopy Magic card. I give it like a 2.6. White Lotus Reinforcements is 3 mana, 1 green, white for a 2/3 human soldier ally with vigilance. Other allies you control get +1/+1. 3 mana Anthem for your allies. You'll play it in allies, but how good is it really at 3 mana? You know what I mean? Especially a creature that can just be lightning strike to death. I want to like it more. But in the context of allies, I will give this a 5. I think it's just a serviceable Anthem effect. Zhao Ruthless Admiral. Animal. There's only a couple of gold cards left, which means we are really rounding the corner. Zhao Ruthless Admiral is 4 mana, 2 and 2 Rakdos hybrids for a 3/4 legendary human soldier with firebending 2. Whenever you sacrifice another permanent, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Pauper EDH. I'm telling you, they're like paying attention to Pauper EDH. This is a really good Pauper EDH commander. Crazy good, dude. And it might be just good in the 99. A big boy commander decks like Judith, Scourge Diva would be fantastic in that deck, along with like anything that plays like Mayhem Devils. Even if your commander is like Lagomos, this could still be really, really good. So I like it in those decks, but again, not very standard playable. Sorry. I'm just going to give this a 3.2 there. But there might be a setup in standard where it's halfway decent. We're getting to the point where now my nose is running. Zuko Conflicted, on the other hand, is black-red for a 2/3 legendary human rogue. At the beginning of your first main phase, choose one that has not been chosen, and you lose 2 life. Either draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Zooks, add a red mana, or exile Zuko, return him to the battlefield under an opponent's control. You'll probably be sacrificing Zuko before that happens, but just in case you don't, now your opponent's losing 2 life per turn on like turn 6 against your aggro deck. So that might just kill them. Like, keep that in mind. In the meantime, you, for 2 mana, played a 3/4 that drew you a card and made an extra mana on a random turn. I think this card is bonkers. I really seriously think this card is insane. I think it's a great 2-drop for Alesha decks, for Carnage decks, which are usually one and the same, just a pretty aggressive thing, 2 mana for a 3/4 draw card. Let's friggin' go. That's so good, dude. I'm going to give this like a 7.2. I really think this card is very, very, very good. We'll see very soon if it's very good, but I got a feeling. This is an underrated card in this set. Barrels of Blasting Jelly, another movie I've been in. Please don't look that one up. A single 1 mana for an artifact. Pay 1 mana and add a mana of any color. Once per turn only for some reason. Pay 5, tap it, and sack it. It deals 5 damage to target creature. So, bad. It's not great. Maybe limited playable, but even then I'm not sure. I will say this can be done at instant speed, so you firebend it. That's how you make this 5 mana work. Keep that in mind in limited, but apart from that, pretty crappy. 2.7 in standard. Bender's Waterskin. I like this card. This is 3 mana for an artifact. Untap it during each other player's untap step. Tap it for a mana of any color. Crazy in Commander, I think, where it effectively generates positive mana value the turn cycle it comes into play. Consider that. I think that's really good. But same time in standard, this can still kind of pay 2/3 of its cost the turn cycle it comes into play. It might be all right too, So I kind of like it. I want to like it more than I do in standard, but I really think there could be a deck every now and again in standard that uses this as a role-playing creature or a role-playing card. So I'll give it a 4.7. I think as far as 3 mana rocks go, it's really good. Fire Nation Warship is 3 mana for a 4/4 vehicle with crew 2 and reach. When it dies, create a clue token. 2 normal. Even a 3 mana 4/4 reach like sounds okay. But at this day and age, I think it's just too normal. 2.5. Kyoshi Battle Fan is not good. It's 2 mana for an equipment that equips for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and when it enters, you get a 1/1 white ally creature token, attach the equipment to it. So kind of job selecty, but you get an ally. You know, just not good. Somewhat limited playable, but mostly not great. We're going to give this a 2. Meteor Sword is 7 mana for an equipment. When it enters, destroy target permanent, not target non-land permanent. Destroy target permanent. Equipped creature gets +3/+3. You can equip for 3. Now, I do think that at 7 mana, you can probably start blowing up lands and it's fine. You know, it costs you 7 mana. Card wants to be Meteor Golem, but it's just not great. I'm going to give this a 2.4 in standard. It's not great. Planetarium of Wan Shitong is 6 mana for a legendary artifact. Pay 1, tap it, scry 2. Whenever you scry or surveil, look at the top card of your library. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Do this only once each turn. Commander Banger slams in Commander. But I think that we can let the boys be boys in standard with this as well. I think 6 mana is incredibly steep, and usually you see a 6 mana card in standard. You're like, well, that's not seeing any play. And you have to have 7 to get a free card off of it the turn you play it. However, I think that in ramp decks, this is cute because sometimes this will get like this massive thing off the top of your library, especially in ramp. Might be worth a slot or 2 in that deck. And in Ugin, this is particularly very good. It might put Ugin on the map a little bit. That said, those are pretty short slots for this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure those are great slots for this card, the most relevant slots. So I'm just going to give it standard a 5.1. But that is higher than I think a lot of you would give it. You know what I mean? Airbend the Meteor Sword, though. Yeah, you got to get it in play in the first place. That is something you can do, though. It's pretty good. Trusty Boomerang is a single mana for an equipment that equips for 1. Equipped creature has pay 1, tap it, tap target creature, return Trusty Boomerang to its owner's hand. The cute thing about this is I can pay a mana to get this in play, equip it for 1, pay 1, tap the creature, sling it back to my hand, and then do it all over again. 3 mana per cycle, basically, to play this, which means it's really good with like Pinnacle Emissary or like anything that cares when you cast an artifact or an artifact enters the battlefield. This could be like sneakily very good with because you're just getting a bunch of those triggers over and over. That's cute. And it's also a tapper for like a relatively low cost. This is better than it looks. It really is, without ever actually seeing any standard play whatsoever, I assume. So I'm going to give this a 4.1, though. I really think there's something to Boomerang. The Walls of Bossing Say is 8 mana for a 0/30 legendary artifact creature wall with Defender. Other permanents you control have indestructible. So if you can find a way to get a dude in play that lets your Defender creatures attack and they deal damage equal to their toughness, this guy's amazing. He shows up in all of those commander decks. In standard, though, I think 8 mana is too much for this. Like, even in Ugin or a deck that would normally play it, I think it's just too much. So, I'm going to have to give this, like, a pretty weak 3.9 in standard, but I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong so bad. White Lotus Tile is 4 mana for an artifact that enters tapped. Tap it to add X mana of any one color, X being the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. So, it's a little bit 3 Tree City-ish, but on an artifact. Guess how much 3 Tree City is right now? Card's like $25. Seriously. This is a commander banger for creature type decks. Doesn't go any farther than that. I don't think this is standard playable for the most part. So I will give this I'll give it a 5 to respect it, but I don't expect to play with it. Next is whatever this is called, Abandoned Air Temple. Now, this is in a different language, but what it says is it's a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a basic land. It taps for a white mana, or you can pay 3 and a white and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that you control. Is that correct? Have I gotten this correct? Yeah, +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That ain't shabby. That is not too bad. I tend to like all of these because you're probably playing basics in your deck. You know what I mean? It's likely that you're doing that. So I think that this is one of the better of these lands. They're not all like slam dunks, but this is one of the better ones. You know, white aggressive decks, if you don't have anything better to do with your mana, this is a good thing to do. So I'm going to give this I'm going to give this like a 7.5 in standard. In Commander, I think it gets a slightly higher score, to be honest, but a 7.5 in Standard because it's an untapped land. Now, Agro is my favorite of these, I think. Agro is a land that enters tapped unless you control a basic. Tap it for a blue, or pay 2 blue, tap, draw a card, discard a card. Every Commander, or every control deck in the world. Every control deck in Standard forever. Play this. Also, it's instant speed, so it could go well in like Solar Flare, like the hybrid Reanimator control decks. This could be fantastic in. Gives you a discard, which some decks want for whatever reason. Just altogether. Draw discard doesn't look like much, but loot on a basically 0 opportunity cost land is fantastic. Like really, really good. So I'm going to actually give this one an 8 in Standard. I think this one sees lots and lots of play. In any deck with islands, this sees play. Airship Engine Room, I'm just going to do one of these. These are the common duels that enter tapped. Tap for a mana of their respective color, or pay 4, tap, sack it, draw a card. I'm just going to give these like a 4.8. They won't see any Standard play, but they are a dual land that taps and draws cards and stuff. That's not bad. Bossing Say is the green monocolored land. It enters tapped unless you have a basic, taps for green. You pay 2 and a green, tap it, Earthbend 2 at sorcery speed. Don't know why it has to be sorcery speed. You know what I mean? Yeah, Earthbending synergy. Yeah, pay 4, tap it, sack it, draw a card, comes back. It's cute. That is actually quite cute. But yeah, Bossing Say, again, not like the most impressive one, especially the sorcery speedness of it. But, you know, sometimes you'll take effectively a creature factory. It kind of feels like a creature factory. So I'll give this I'll give this a 7, right out of 7. Fire Nation Palace. This is maybe my favorite one. This is a land that enters tapped unless you get a basic, taps for red, and you can pay 1 red tap. Target creature you control gains Firebending 4 until end of turn. So you have to tap 2 lands and this land. So in a way, you're generating 1 mana. But what that actually feels like is that this is a land that taps for 2 mana, and those are always outrageous. You have to enable it by having a creature that you're actually going to attack with. Easier said than done. And you have to have the mana for it in the first place. You have to have a creature. You have to have a spell you can cast with the firebending mana, which again, easier said than done. But even with all these hoops and stuff, I think this is just phenomenal. Yeah, Ancient Tomb for red instants and flash creatures and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think, and for activated abilities, I think there's a lot of ways that they gave us in this set, but also ways we currently had in Standard already, to use this mana during our combat stuff and not play embarrassing cards. So this might be my favorite one for competitive environments specifically, because anytime you have a land that taps for effectively 2 mana, it's busted. So Quantum Runner, see you later. We were very close to the end, by the way. But yeah, I think this is my favorite of these. I'm going to give this an 8.1. Just an 8.1. Foggy Bottom Swamp. Oh, don't have to do that one. Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop is a land that taps for colorless. Enters play untapped. Tap for a mana of any color, but you can only spend that to cast an ally or activate an ability from an ally. You can also pay 5, tap it to make a 1/1 white ally creature token. So this one goes in the ally decks, and it's very good there, obviously, but doesn't really go anywhere else, But we judge these, creature type matters cards on their relevancy in the creature type deck that they're going to go in. So that said, and given the fact this is an untapped land, I'll actually give this like a 7. Like, I think it's really good in the one deck and like nowhere else, Meditation Pools, by the way, really, really good art. Fantastic art on that card. Next, is there a next? Is Rumble Arena. 1, 2, 3 cards left, guys. Rumble Arena is a land with vigilance. That's neat. When it enters scry 1, you can tap it for a colorless, or you can pay 1, tap it for a mana of any color. So technically a Crystal Grotto that is strictly better, right? Because it has vigilance, whereas Crystal Grotto doesn't. So technically strictly better. So I guess there's that. And Crystal Grotto is a fine card. I will give this a 5. Right at. Secret Tunnel is a land. It's also a cave, interestingly, that cannot be blocked. This land can't be blocked. This land cannot be blocked. This land can't be blocked. You tap it for a colorless mana, or you pay 4 and tap it and have 2 target creatures you control that share a creature type are unblockable this turn. So, yikes. Rogue's Passage, you don't have to sacrifice this or anything. Just if you have 2 creatures that share a type, it's Rogue Passage that gets 2 things through unblocked. It's crazy. It's so good. And the land itself can't be blocked if it ever becomes a creature, if you earthbend it or whatever. That's good. That's just good. Rogue's Passage already sees play in a ton of commander decks. This will see play in a lot of those too, but this could see play in a lot of standard decks as well. I like that about it. And I mean it. I think this could actually see some play in some standard decks from time to time. Double unblockability is really good. Sometimes you'll have creatures that incidentally share a creature type, even if you don't have a creature type matters deck. Like, oh, both these guys are humans. I didn't plan it, but it is what it is, you know. So, I think this is really good. I do. I'm going to give this a 7 as well. I like untapped lands. That's all I'm going to say. And then White Lotus Hideout. Is this the last one? Yes, baby. White Lotus Hideout is a land that taps for colorless, comes into play untap, and you tap it for a mana of any color, spend it only to cast a lesson or shrine spell. And much like the last thing, you can pay 1, tap it, add a mana of any color to fix your mana at a cost. And so 5 color lessons, I'm not sure we need. 5 color shrines, we do need. This actually helps out decks in Commander beyond the shrines decks we already had. Go Shintai is one of the most popular commanders people build on EDH Rec. So I imagine people are going to be happy to get this land. Even if there wasn't a single shrine in the set, people would be happy to get this land there. But in standard, you know, shrines deck in standard, sure. Lessons deck in standard, maybe. But ultimately, just like the ally land, it's like, well, I have to give you a high score because you're good in that deck. But are you really good? You know what I mean? I'm going to give this a 7 as well. You know, yeah, single cave and that's it, you know. But yeah, I'm going to give this a 7 as well because untapped land that really fixes the mana in the deck that goes in. Yeah, that's worth the 7. But that is it. That is it. Besides, I guess the talking about the scoring at the very beginning, I've got 3 hours, 49 minutes, and 35 seconds right now, which is great. That's actually not a bad speed run at all. I've done like 4.5 hour speed runs recently. So we did okay tonight, I want to say. But if you're watching on YouTube and you want to reward the 4-hour journey we just went on, make sure you like the video, hype the video, put it around in more people's recommendeds. Both those actions do that. You can subscribe to the channel. If you appreciate you want to see the next one of these we do it every season. And of course, you can check out the Patreon if you want to reward the fact that I might not be able to make a video for a day or two while my voice rests. So, if you want to help me out over there, it's just $1 a month, patreon.com/SBMTG. I will take your $1, and for that $1, I'll let you vote on what decks we do each season, including Avatar season. So first Patreon poll is coming up in a few days. Make sure you get over there. $1 all it takes. Support the channel. It's the best way to support the channel. I couldn't do it without Patreon. But anyway, that's all I've got for now, YouTube peeps. I know you've been watching me for 4 hours and you are ready to start the second half of your workday. So get in there and hit it hard and you can go home. But I love you. If you're still watching on Twitch, hang out for just a second. We'll wrap things up. But if you're watching on YouTube, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching, Wizards. I am Deb from The Place. Spread love and be kind.